subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
In the end, the second brother was tortured by hopeless desire and went crazy and committed suicide in order to be with her. Voldemort Tom Riddle showed fear of death from a very young age. In order to avoid death, he did a lot of research. He once learned about the story of the god of death and the three brothers, and spent some time studying the legendary resurrection stone. But the harvest was very little, and he only got a few illusory messages. After using it, you'll get information about death. A golden treasure chest. The things opened are only information about death. This is too abstract. After all, Lin Xiu still used this information. A picture suddenly appeared in his mind. In a pure white, misty steam, countless illusory human figures came and went. Lin Xiu understood it instantly when he saw this picture. This pure white space is limbo. In Harry Potter's worldview, limbo is between the edge of life and death. It is both real and illusory. The illusory human figures coming and going in limbo are all dead people. Lin Xiu has a hunch that if he continues to dig deeper into the information in these pictures in his mind, he may be able to use them to peek into the secrets between life and death and escape death. But he is still very young and has no fear of death. He does not have much motivation to pursue immortality. But Lin Xiu thought of another thing. Since those illusory figures in the misty fantasy are all dead people, is there a way to bring them to the present world? Nothing else. Snape's white moonlight lily, Dumbledore's guilty sister Ariana Dumbledore. They're all dead people. If there is a way to summon them from the misty border and let them appear in front of Snape and Dumbledore, then Snape and Dumbledore will definitely have extremely violent emotional fluctuations. At that time, Lin Xiu estimated that he could directly obtain the highest level of the supreme treasure chest from them. However, he is just thinking about it now. It is very difficult to revive the dead, and it is not much simpler than killing Voldemort directly. It's still a bit far to think about these things now. Let's talk about it later. Lin Xiu felt that the matter of resurrecting the dead is promising in the future. There are not many days left before the final exams at Hogwarts. Hermione and Lin Xiu began to prepare for the exams. Ron lamented and hurriedly began to cram for various subjects. Harry was a little absent-minded. He wondered who summoned the doe Patronus he saw in the Forbidden Forest that night. Harry occasionally thought of Voldemort, who he saw in the Forbidden Forest. According to the Centaurs, Voldemort wanted to steal the Philosopher's Stone to revive and then make a comeback. Finally, when the day passed, Quirrell did not show up in class again, and the defense against the dark arts class turned into self-study as expected. Harry suddenly realized that he seemed to have forgotten something. It's Quirrell. Quirrell has a problem. When he walked with Ron, he said in a positive tone, "I suspect Quirrell wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone and help Voldemort resurrect." Lin Xiu and Hermione walked a few steps behind them. The four of them were in a corridor of Hogwarts at this time, and the sun was about to set. We have to find a way to solve this matter. Harry strung together everything he had experienced in the past. The rooms in the corridor of Hogwarts were not allowed to be approached because the three-headed dog Fluffy was guarding the Philosopher's Stone, and Voldemort wanted to use the Philosopher's Stone to resurrect. And Quirrell's various behaviors made people suspicious. At the Halloween dinner, Quirrell was frightened and fainted because of a troll. In a Quidditch match, Harry's flying broom seemed to be cursed by someone. Thanks to Professor Snape's timely rescue, Harry escaped safely. After that, Professor Snape has been targeting Quirrell everywhere. And Quirrell, as a defense against the dark arts the teacher of magic during the Christmas holidays, was hit on the head by a snowball from Lin Xiu and others, but he didn't have any temper. This is really abnormal. We must go to Dumbledore, Harry said. We have to report Quirrell's abnormality to him. But Harry's attempt failed, and even his attempt to find Snape and monitor Quirrell was repeatedly blocked. According to Professor McGonagall, Dumbledore received an urgent letter from the Ministry of Magic in London and will not return to Hogwarts until tomorrow. And Snape didn't know where he went. Quirrell had no sense of existence. and no one knew where he appeared when he was not in the defense against the dark arts class. Quirrell had not attended class for a long time. This made Harry feel extremely nervous, and he had a terrible guess in his heart. He told Lin Xiu and others his guess in the Gryffindor common room. Dumbledore is not in Hogwarts tonight. If anyone wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone to help Voldemort resurrect, tonight is his last chance. Harry's eyes lit up. I can only rely on myself. I will sneak out of here tonight, pass through the trapdoor guarded by the three-headed dog, and try to get the Philosopher's Stone first. Chapter 57. Speed through the Philosopher's Stone level. The Felixir is so terrifying. Hearing Harry's words, Ron's eyes widened. Harry, you're crazy. You can't do this, Hermione said. When we went to see Professor McGonagall just now, she said that if you rashly interfere in the matter of the Philosopher's Stone, you will be expelled. So what? Harry said loudly. I have thought it through. If Quirrell gets the Philosopher's Stone, Voldemort will come back, and then Hogwarts will be razed to the ground. Losing points or expelling is no longer important. Even if we abide by the school rules and win the House Cup for Gryffindor. So what? Will Voldemort let us go? I will never go to Voldemort. He killed my parents. Ron sighed. You are right, Harry. At this time, there was no one else in the Gryffindor common room. Therefore, Harry did not deliberately cover up. He took out his invisibility cloak from the dormitory and walked into the common room to say goodbye to Lin Xiu and others. Harry said, Lin Xiu, Hermione, Ron, I'm glad to meet you at Hogwarts. I remember that the invisibility cloak can cover more than one person. Lin Xiu said, more than one person? Don't be silly, Lin Xiu said. Do you want to face Quirrell and Voldemort alone? Lin Xiu decided to participate in the Philosopher's Stone Challenge tonight. An important reason is that Lin Xiu wants to see if he can continue to explode the emotional treasure chest from Voldemort's residual soul. As the top 923 Dark Wizard, there will be a lot of good things in the emotional treasure chest dropped by Voldemort. The most important reason is that he wants to protect Hermione's safety. Ron and Harry, the two of them, one is a pure-blood wizard, and the other is protected by ancient magic. Voldemort basically won't take the initiative to hurt them. But for wizards like Hermione who were born in Muggle families, the situation is different. Lin Xiu can clearly feel that because of his participation, because Harry would turn into a girl from time to time, the plot in the original book has changed. Harry no longer misunderstood Snape, but determined that Quirrell was a bad guy. Last night, in the Forbidden Forest, Quirrell, who was controlled by Voldemort's remnant soul, showed aggression far beyond the description in the original book. Lin Xiu was worried that Hermione might be hurt by Voldemort's remnant soul during the level-breaking process. As for whether Dumbledore and Snape would monitor Hermione during the level-breaking process of the Philosopher's Stone, Lin Xiu didn't care. It would be better to have their monitoring, which could ensure safety throughout the process. The difficulty of all the Philosopher's Stone levels would not exceed the upper limit of Harry's ability, and naturally would not exceed the upper limit of Lin Xiu's ability, so Lin Xiu would not be exposed. I will go with you. Hermione was standing behind Lin Xiu at this time, flipping through the spell book, but if you're not in a hurry, let me read a few more pages of the book. Maybe I can find something useful. But if we are caught, you three will also be expelled. Harry, we are friends, aren't we? Ron said, sometimes friends just have to accompany you to do risky things. We won't be caught. Lin Xiu said, if it doesn't work, Harry, you can turn into a girl and beg for mercy in front of Professor Snape. If necessary, I will try. Harry nodded a little embarrassedly. Since we are all going to face Voldemort, then turning into a girl to beg for mercy from Professor Snape is nothing, right? But when it comes to Professor Snape, Harry seems to have suddenly thought of something. He ran back to the dormitory and took out a small bottle of golden potion. Lin Xiu, you reminded me. This is Professor Snape's Christmas gift to me, the Felicity Potion, which seems to enhance our luck. Harry divided the Felicity Potion equally and drank some for each person. Professor Snape told me to use it when the time is right. I think now is the best time, right? After drinking the Felicity Potion, Lin Xiu suddenly felt that his whole state was adjusted to the best, as if everything he did would come true. At this time, he suddenly had some inspiration. Looking up, he found that Hermione, Harry, Ron, and others were also looking over. "Do we have the same feeling?" Lin Xiu said, "I feel that it is best to set out to find the Philosopher's Stone now. What do you think?" In fact, they had originally planned to go out later when it was late at night and quiet, and might not attract other people's attention. But under the influence of the Felixer, they did not hesitate. Lin Xiu took the lead and left as soon as he said he would. When they walked to the corridor of the Gryffindor common room and were about to walk out of the portrait guarded by the fat lady, footsteps came from the direction of the boys' dormitory. "Lin Xiu, Harry, Ron, are you in the common room?" Neville's voice sounded, but when he looked from the dormitory to the common room where the lights had been turned off, he could only see darkness. Lin Xiu and his friends had already set out in advance to protect the Philosopher's Stone. The journey was extremely smooth. They met Peeves blocking the road halfway, but the next second, Slytherin's ghost, the Bloody Baron, passed through the wall and scared Peeves away. They also met Filch's cat, Mrs. Norris, hiding in the dark halfway. But soon, Peeves screamed and led Norris away as he ran. Lin Xiu led Harry and the others to the corridor outside the 4th floor without much effort. The door opened just a crack. When Lin Xiu led Hermione, Harry, and Ron into the room, the 3 heads of the big dog sniffed at the same time and finally sneezed 3 times loudly and moved its claws just right, revealing the trapdoor. The trapdoor opened, and it was pitch black below. But the Felicity potion that Lin Xiu had drunk before was still working, and he jumped down without hesitation, followed by Hermione, and then Harry and Ron. The 4 of them fell on something soft at the same time. "We must be very far away from the school," Hermione said. "The Felicity potion is so effective that we fell on the soft plant." Ron breathed a sigh of relief. "I know," Hermione suddenly said. "This is a devil's snare. If we don't struggle, we can fall down safely." But before she finished speaking, the group of devil's snares fell down softly, as if they were tickled. Lin Xiu and his group did nothing and landed safely. Ahead was a stone corridor, the only way to go. Walking on this road, in addition to their own footsteps, there was also the sound of water dripping slowly along the wall. "Did you hear anything?" Ron whispered. The corridor went down the slope, and Lin Xiu heard a light rustling and tinkling sound coming from the front. "Could be a ghost talking. I don't know. It sounds like the flapping of wings." "There's a light in front. I see something moving." Lin Xiu was the first to walk out of the corridor. In front of him was a brightly lit room with a high vaulted ceiling. Countless little birds, as dazzling as gems, fluttered their wings and flew around the room. Opposite the room was a heavy wooden door, which was locked. With the help of Eagle Eye, Lin Xiu easily saw that the things flying around the room were not birds at all, but keys with wings. "Harry, we need to catch the key to this door and open it," Ron said, "but there are hundreds of keys flying in the sky." He carefully checked the keyhole of the door. "We need to find a large antique key, maybe silver, shaped like a door handle." 4 flying brooms were placed not far away. There is no doubt that we need to ride on the flying brooms, and the Quidditch seeker instinct is ready to move. Catch the uranium key like finding the golden snitch. At this time, Lin Xiu suddenly had a whim and wanted to stretch his arms. So he moved his limbs, and when he reached up, he suddenly felt something was stuffed in his palm. He took it down and saw that a silver key with sky blue wings fell in his palm just right. At this time, Harry had just sat on the flying broom. Lin Xiu pressed the key in his palm into the stone wall, and the door lock opened. Chapter 58. Quirrell and Voldemort were confused. "Who closed my door? Is this the power of the Felices?" Hermione couldn't help but sigh. "The 4 of us drank the Felices. But why do I feel that Lin Xiu's luck is much better than the 3 of us?" Harry and Ron also found it a little unbelievable. Especially Harry. He was almost ready to die before. But after drinking the Felices, whether it was the vicious 3-headed dog, the devil's snare, or the hundreds of flying keys here, they did not cause any obstacles to them. Lin Xiu led the way in front, and they followed behind, and they were relaxed all the way as if they were traveling. Alas, Ron was not very interested. "I thought that our adventure along the way would be more exciting." Pushing the door open, the group came to the second room. The room was extremely dark, and there was a huge thing standing faintly in the space in the distance. Where is this? Harry recalled the bad scene. Is this a cemetery? It's not a cemetery. Ron observed the surroundings carefully and shook his head. This is a chessboard. Behind the white chess piece on the opposite side of the chessboard, there's a huge door. The group stepped onto the chessboard and wanted to cross directly to the door on the opposite side. But when they just walked to the white chess piece on the opposite side, the stone knives in the hands of the soldier chess pieces were unsheathed and pointed at Lin Xiu and the others. What should we do now? Harry whispered. Isn't it obvious? Ron said, we have to play chess to get to the other end of the room. How to play? Hermione asked. In my opinion, Ron said, we have to act as chess pieces. His face was full of confidence, and wizard chess was something he was very good at. Lin Xiu, you go to the chariot position. Hermione, you stand near Lin Xiu, replacing the castle. Harry, you replace the bishop's position. As for me, Ron said, I will become a knight. The Black Queen, castle, bishop, knight, and other chess pieces turned around and left the chessboard, and Lin Xiu and the others took their positions. White moves first. Ron said, game start. A white pawn moved forward 2 squares. Ron began to direct the game. Let me think about it. According to Ron's usual thinking of playing chess, he should have asked Harry to move 4 squares to the right front when the white soldier chess piece moved. But somehow, he had another way of playing in his mind at this moment. Ron realized that the fluctuate was working. He almost didn't hesitate too much and immediately gave orders. When the white chess piece eats the black chess piece, it always behaves cruelly, but under the effect of the fluctuate, not only Ron, but also Harry and Hermione can play a magical move from time to time. Not to mention Lin Xiu, who once opened Wizard Chess Mastery in the Emotional Treasure Box. The 4 people did not communicate too much. They tried their best to play their own chess pieces and act according to the rules of their own chess pieces. In a few seconds, they killed the white chess pieces without leaving any armor. Without sacrificing any of the 4 people, Lin Xiu's chariot was the first to kill the white chess pieces. The remaining white chess pieces bowed and retreated to make way. It took them only a few minutes to easily pass the wizard chess formation in the second room. Ron looked back at the restored chessboard and said with some disappointment, this game of wizard chess is easier than I thought. They followed Lin Xiu, walked out of the door, passed through another corridor, and came to a new door. This door was not locked, but a disgusting stench came from the gap between the doors. Almost at the same time, they thought of the troll they encountered last time. Even under the effect of the fluctuate, Hermione felt a little nervous. She walked to Lin Xiu's side and grabbed the corner of Lin Xiu's clothes tightly. Are you ready, everyone? Go in. After getting a positive answer, Lin Xiu pushed the door open. A giant monster, even bigger than the one they had seen last time, appeared in front of everyone. As soon as the giant monster saw the little wizards, it rushed over with drooling mouth. Lin Xiu and his friends took a few steps without even running, and the giant monster chased in the direction of Lin Xiu, staggered and bumped into the wall, fainted, and blocked the door. Thanks to the Fallen, we don't have to fight this giant monster, Harry whispered. Let's go, I'm almost suffocated by the stench of the monster. Lin Xiu opened the next door, and everyone thought there would be a more terrifying test. But in fact, there was nothing scary here. Only a table with 7 bottles of different shapes placed on it, filled with different potions. Lin Xiu and his friends just stepped over the threshold, and flames rose at the intersections behind and in front. The flames at the intersection behind were purple, and the flames at the intersection in front were black. They seemed to be trapped, Harry said. It's related to the potion. This must be the magic arranged by Professor Snape. But even Ron, who is usually relatively timid, did not feel afraid. This was the confidence that the Fallen gave him. This level is definitely the same as before and can be easily passed. Look, Hermione grabbed a roll of parchment next to the bottle and read with Lin Xiu. Danger is in front of you. Safety is behind. 2 of us can help you. Drink them. One will lead you forward, and the other will send you back to where you came from. 2 of them are filled with nettle wine. 3 are poisons waiting in line. Choose, unless you want to be delayed here forever. We also provide 4 clues to help you choose. Hermione's face showed a smile. Great, she said. This is not magic, this is logical reasoning, a riddle. Many of the greatest wizards have no ability to reason logically, so they are trapped here forever. To be honest, among the four, Lin Xiu and Hermione have the strongest reasoning ability, but this is not needed at this moment. The Felixer worked hard, and everyone's intuition was surprisingly consistent at this moment. Lin Xiu grabbed the smallest bottle. After drinking this potion, you can pass through the black flames and get the Philosopher's Stone. Hermione pointed to a round-bellied bottle on the far right. This potion can make people pass through the purple flames behind them and return the same way. Harri and Ron also used their intuition to distinguish what the remaining bottles of potion were. The 2 wide-mouthed bottles contained nettle wine, and the 3 narrow-mouthed bottles contained poison. Harri was ready to drink the potion in the small bottle and get the Philosopher's Stone. But Harri, Ron said with some concern, what if the mysterious man is in the room in front? Well, I got away with it once before, remember? Harri pointed to the scar on his forehead and said, I might be able to turn the danger into a blessing. Harri, I wish you good luck. At this time, Lin Xiu did not continue to participate. Under normal circumstances, Quirrell, who was possessed by Voldemort's residual soul, was in the last room at this moment, waiting for Harri to come and start a duel. The duel between Harri and Voldemort was a nemesis, and it was not easy to interfere casually. Lin Xiu just felt a little regretful that he did not explode a new emotional treasure chest on Voldemort during this level-breaking process. He watched Harri take a deep breath, grab the smallest bottle, and turn to face the black flames. I'm coming. Harri finished speaking and drank the liquid in the small bottle in one gulp. Harri put down the bottle and walked forward. He mustered up his courage, and the black flames licked his body, but did not cause any harm. Behind the black flames, Lin Xiu and Hermione watched Harri push open the door of the last room, just when Ron and the others were worried that Harri might meet Voldemort. Lin Xiu found that Harri walked out with a frown not long after entering the door. Harri took out a red gem-like object from his trouser pocket. I got the Philosopher's Stone, Harri said with confusion, but there was only the mirror of a Reist inside except me, and no one else. No one else. Ron's eyes widened. Harri, you mean to say that we broke through the many traps set by Dumbledore and wanted to protect the Philosopher's Stone before you-know-who and Quirrell? But in fact, we are the thieves of the Philosopher's Stone? Hermione sighed. I guess we are really going to be expelled this time. An unspeakable embarrassment spread between Harri and Ron, and even the confidence brought by the Felicia Felix could not dispel this unbearable atmosphere. But soon, Lin Xiu motioned Harri and the others to look in the direction they came from. Listen, is there any sound? In the direction of the troll's room, a person's shouting and cursing came faintly. Witchbd blocked the door. If I catch you, I will definitely kill you. Ron listened carefully. It was Quirrell's voice. Great, Harri said excitedly. Oh, this shows that we didn't mean well, but did bad things. Quirrell really came to steal the Philosopher's Stone. He must be Voldemort's lackey. Fortunately, Hermione breathed a sigh of relief. We didn't cause too much damage to Dumbledore's arrangement. We just came a little earlier. Chapter 59, Harry's 3 tricks on Voldemort. Harri and Ron breathed a sigh of relief after finding Quirrell outside the troll's room. This way, they don't have to feel guilty for getting the Philosopher's Stone in advance. But then comes another problem. Quirrell is blocking outside now. What should we do next? Harri and Ron looked at each other and subconsciously looked at Lin Xiu. The most anxious one now is Quirrell. We don't have to worry at all, Lin Xiu said calmly. Quirrell is afraid of Dumbledore, so he forged a letter from the Ministry of Magic to lead Dumbledore away. But this matter can only be concealed for a while. Lin Xiu is right, Hermione said. When Dumbledore arrives at the Ministry of Magic and sees through Quirrell's conspiracy, Quirrell's death will come. Now we are the one with the advantage. Lin Xiu pointed to the door of the troll's room and said, Harri, Ron, listen, is there the sound of Quirrell chanting from the door? Harri bravely moved closer and heard Quirrell outside the door, cursing angrily while bombarding with spells. Thunder explosion, shattered into pieces, fire blazing. Many of these are offensive spells that Harri had heard from Professor Flitwick in the charms class, but had not really learned. Obviously, Quirrell is anxious. Ron agreed with Lin Xiu. He used all kinds of spells, but the door of the troll's room didn't move at all. When we passed the flying key door before, I secretly tried it with my wand once, and the unlocking spell didn't work. Hermione said, I guess when Dumbledore left these protective measures, he cast a very strong protective spell on the doors of each room. 6, 7-inch Harri smiled and said, Quirrell must be very anxious now. The more anxious Quirrell's tone outside the door became, the more at ease Harri and Ron felt. Just as Lin Xiu said, they are now the dominant party. We probably have to stay here for a night, Ron said. Do you want to play a game of wizard chess? Did you bring wizard chess with you when you went out? Harri was amazed. No, it's just that when I cleared the wizard chess room before, I picked up a few broken chess pieces as souvenirs. They're all large pieces of stone. We can pretend that they're chess pieces. Ron took out some stone fragment from his arms and placed them on the ground, sitting on the ground. Come on, Lin Xiu, Harri, let's play chess. Who will go first? No need to pretend. You can use transmutation to turn these broken stones directly into corresponding chess pieces. Lin Xiu pulled out his wand and tapped the gravel on the ground. There was no need to even recite a spell. The gravel on the ground turned into a set of pocket wizard chess. Harri and Ron's eyes lit up. Lin Xiu, you are so awesome. They excitedly started the pocket wizard chess game, and Lin Xiu smiled in Hermione's direction. Hermione took a small piece of gravel, pulled out her wand, and kept casting spells on the gravel, trying to replicate Lin Xiu's operation. Time passed by minute. When Harri and Ron had played the 4th round of wizard chess, the door of the troll's room suddenly opened. Quirrell, wearing a purple turban, rushed in with a ferocious face. His roaring voice was like a cold, poisonous snake. Come here. Potter. Harri, who was playing wizard chess on the ground, felt a sudden severe pain in his forehead. He stood up suddenly. Harri almost immediately thought of the mysterious man in a black cloak that he met in the Forbidden Forest at night. That night, the mysterious man sucked unicorn blood in the depths of the Forbidden Forest and even wanted to kill people. It's you, Harri shouted. Quirrell, the black-robed man in the Forbidden Forest. It's you. His voice became softer, and his long red hair grew out again. Harri turned into a girl involuntarily the first time his scar hurt. Yes, it's me. Quirrell's voice was like a poisonous snake hissing and spitting out its tongue, and he walked toward the potion room from the troll room with a grin and walked towards Harri. The next second, in the potion room where Lin Xiu and the others were, black and purple flames suddenly rose into a wall of fire, blocking the surrounding vision. Ron, who was closer to the girl Harri, bounced directly from the ground into the room where Harri got the Philosopher's Stone as if there was a spring on his buttocks. Lin Xiu felt a gentle breeze holding him up and followed Ron into the room. Behind Lin Xiu, Hermione also floated in and landed safely beside him. In the room, the mirror of Harri stood quietly in the middle, but Lin Xiu and the other 3 had no intention of caring about the mirror. Harri was now in the previous room, facing Voldemort's lackey Quirrell alone. The 3 of them subconsciously wanted to run back to the potion room, where Harri was, but there seemed to be an invisible barrier between the mirror room and the door of the mirror room. They couldn't get out of the door, no matter what, and could only watch Quirrell approach Harri with a grin. It's over, Ron said pessimistically. Harri is going to die at Quirrell's hands. We still have the effect of the Felix Felicis, Hermione said. Harri won't be killed so easily. He will definitely be able to hold on until Dumbledore comes back. But Lin Xiu was not worried at all, because the potion room was arranged by Snape. And when they were invited out of the potion room just now, they passed through the fire wall formed by black flames, but they did not suffer any harm. Obviously, Snape deliberately created a situation where Harri had to face Quirrell alone. With Snape's protection in secret, Harry's life would not be in danger. In the potion room, the flames burned into walls around, isolating everything around. There were only Quirrell and Harri in the firewall. Quirrell took off his purple headscarf and slowly turned around. A hideous and terrifying face appeared on the back of his head. The face was pale, the eyes were red, and the nostrils were as thin as a venomous snake. Harry Potter, we meet again. Voldemort. Exactly, Voldemort said. Look at what I have become. In order to survive, I have become a parasite on others. The unicorn's blood can keep me alive, but it can't give me my own body. Why don't you give me the Philosopher's Stone? Seeing the two hideous faces on Quirrell's head, Harry thought he should feel fear and terror. But when he saw that the nostrils of Quirrell and Voldemort's faces were like being blown up by bombs, they were hollow, and sparks came out from time to time, like clowns making people laugh. Harry could only feel a sense of humor. This was what Lin Xiu did last night. He blew up Quirrell and Voldemort's noses with his wand. Harry never thought it would be so funny, and he couldn't help laughing out loud. Shut up, Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head said viciously. It's all the fault of that damn wizard last night. If I knew who he was, I would make him live a life worse than death. If it weren't for the fact that I'm not strong enough now, Voldemort said in a hoarse voice. I wanted to spare your life, Potter, but now I've changed my mind. I only admire the warriors who dare to resist me, but I don't appreciate the rude fools. Catch him. Quirrell rushed towards Harry. Then, Harry felt the scar on his forehead piercing with pain, and he subconsciously covered his head. The elixir of life also took effect at this time. Harry bent down while covering his head. Quirrell just missed grabbing Harry and was tripped by a small tile in the room that had been lifted up at some point and fell into the black wall of fire in the potion room. He was instantly engulfed by the black flames. Quirrell hunched over in pain, rolling on the ground, while the black flames burned more and more on his body. Catch him! Catch him! Voldemort screamed again. Quirrell lunged forward, knocked Harry to the ground, rode on him, and strangled Harry's neck with both hands. Harry's scar was in great pain again, and his eyes went black, but he saw Quirrell howling in pain. The black flames in the potion room burned more vigorously, and Quirrell's hand, holding Harry, was also burning. But when the black flames touched Harry, they did not cause any harm to him at all. They did not even ignite a single strand of Harry's red hair. Master, I can't catch him, I'm on fire. The fire is getting bigger and bigger. Quirrell involuntarily let go of Harry's neck, because one of his hands was burnt and had no strength. Then kill him, idiot, act quickly, Voldemort said in a harsh voice. Quirrell raised his still intact hand and prepared to recite a killing curse, but Harry suddenly grabbed Quirrell's face. Quirrell screamed horribly in pain. Idiot! How could you be fooled by a kid like Potter 3 times in a row? Voldemort was still roaring viciously. Kill him! Kill him! Harry's eyes went dark, but he still held Quirrell tightly. But in just a moment, Harry felt his hand lighten, as if Quirrell had disappeared. Harry's mind was sinking. He fainted. At this time, the firewall in the potion room disappeared. In a magic mirror room, Ron felt that the invisible barrier blocking him disappeared and rushed towards Harry. At this time, Harry had turned back into a boy. Ron kept calling Harry's name anxiously, hoping to wake Harry up, but Harry did not respond. Instead, a white-haired old man suddenly appeared beside Harry. Professor Dumbledore. Harry and Voldemort had a fight. Ron couldn't help shouting, "Please save him." "Mr. Weasley," Dumbledore said with a smile, "Harry is fine. He just went through too much today. He is too tired and needs a good sleep." Dumbledore looked at Lin Xiu. "Mr. Lin Xiu, Miss Granger, Mr. Weasley, can you help me send Harry to Ms. Pomfrey for treatment? I have to deal with some follow-up matters here. By the way, remember to call Mr. Longbottom. He is outside the trapdoor. Mr. Longbottom found that you were missing, so he found me. Please let me find you, 17. Okay, Professor." Lin Xiu and Ron carried Harry and hurried out the door. After the little wizards left, Dumbledore stood in the potion room and shouted to the empty space. "Severus!" Snape walked out from the corner. "I'm here, Professor. At present, Harry's performance has far exceeded my expectations," Dumbledore said. "You have been paying attention to Harry throughout the whole process. Did anything special happen?" "There was a little problem in the middle, Professor," Snape said. "Very, very small situation. Did you take the initiative to help Harry deal with Voldemort's remnant soul?" Dumbledore sighed. If your identity in Voldemort's camp is exposed, I will have to change the next arrangement for you. I didn't show up on my own initiative, and the Dark Lord would not suspect me. Snape hesitated for a while, but I sent Harry a small bottle of Felicity's at Christmas. He used it in this Philosopher's Stone. 11. Thanks to the luck of the Felicia, Harry and his friends were able to break through the levels much faster than expected. Before Quirrell and the Dark Lord's remnant entered the trapdoor, Harry had already obtained the Philosopher's Stone, and you hadn't even returned to Hogwarts at that time. 1. I had to use a spell to seal the doors of the potion room and the troll room, waiting for you to return to Hogwarts. That's not a big deal. Dumbledore said easily. Voldemort is now just a remnant soul. His mind is full of madness and confusion, and Quirrell, who was born in Ravenclaw, has become a lot stupider. They are indeed stupid now. Snape nodded. After I used a powerful spell to protect the gate, Quirrell used various offensive spells to blast outside the gate for more than half an hour, but he never found anything unusual. He changed the subject. Professor, you said before that you wanted to use the protection spell on Harry to eliminate Quirrell, so as to spy on the memory of the Dark Lord's residual soul in Quirrell. Did you find anything? Found something. A ball of black flowing viscous liquid floated in Dumbledore's hand. The memory of a living person is shining bright silver, and the memory extracted from Voldemort's residual soul is these black. I can feel that these memory fragments are full of chaos and madness. I need some time to sort out these disordered memories. I hope you can find clues to the Dark Lord's Horcrux as soon as possible. I hope the Dark Lord can really die and disappear from this world forever. Severus, this kind of thing can't be rushed. Dumbledore said, before that, maybe you can consider the year-end banquet? You should tell Professor McGonagall this, Snape said. After this adventure of the Philosopher's Stone, hasn't Gryffindor already locked the championship of this year's College Cup? Chapter 60. What a thrilling adventure. After Lin Xiu and the others sent Harry to the school hospital, Madame Pomfrey conducted a simple examination on Harry and confirmed that he was fine and just needed to rest for a while. So she left Harry in the school hospital. Then Madame Pomfrey checked Lin Xiu and the others one by one, and after making sure that they had no hidden injuries, she drove them out of the school hospital and asked them to go back to the dormitory to rest and have a good sleep. After this adventure of the Philosopher's Stone, Hermione and the others were a little sleepy. After Ron and Neville returned to the dormitory, they fell asleep as soon as their heads touched the pillow. Even Hermione yawned and hurriedly said good night to Lin Xiu before returning to the girls' dormitory. But Lin Xiu did not fall asleep immediately. On the one hand, he had opened Inhuman Constitution from Hagrid's emotional treasure chest before, so he was still energetic until now. On the other hand, Lin Xiu noticed the prompt that popped up in the system. Ding! Voldemort Tom, Riddle's anger detected. Drawing treasure chest for the host. Congratulations to the host. You have won a silver treasure chest. Any surprises? Lin Xiu guessed that Voldemort's emotions this time were probably because when Voldemort showed his true form and confronted Harry, Voldemort wanted to create an atmosphere of fear to intimidate Harry. But Harry laughed at his nose, laughing at his nose that Lin Xiu had blown 2 big holes in the Forbidden Forest last night. Voldemort was narcissistic and arrogant by nature. He had to rely on Quirrell and live like a parasite, which was a bit unbearable for him. Harry's smile was like rubbing salt in Voldemort's wounds, which made Voldemort a bit overwhelmed. Anyway, it's a good thing to have obtained Voldemort's emotional treasure chest. Open the treasure chest. Ding! The silver treasure chest has been opened. Congratulations to the host for gaining the perception of death. Death perception. Out of fear of death, Voldemort created Horcruxes and Inferi, committed a large number of murders, and brought death to many people. He himself had faced death, so Voldemort had a very keen perception of the breath of death. After 24 days of use, your perception of death will become extremely keen. You can come into contact with many things that only people who have seen death can come into contact with, such as the Thestrals. You can better perceive death. Better perception of death. Lin Xiu was a little confused by this statement in the system prompt, but death perception allowed him to see the figure of the Thestrals, and this effect was not bad. Lin Xiu chose to use it. He suddenly felt that the world in front of him had changed a little. The various things in sight have not changed much, but there is something different. Lin Xiu had an impulse in his heart, wanting to verify the vague feeling he had after using Death Sense. He looked at the bedside table and followed the simulation of Death Sense and pressed several positions on the bedside table. Lin Xiu pressed 9 points on the bedside table in succession, and when he pressed the 10th point, there was only a very light click crisp sound, and the seemingly extremely solid wood bedside table cracked on the spot, and the things on it fell to the ground. Good guy, weak point perception. Lin Xiu understood. Death Sense can make him vaguely perceive the enemy's weak points. These weak points may not be accurate, but if the weak points are found correctly and attacked, the effect of killing the enemy with a little effort can be achieved, and it is easier to kill the enemy. It can only be said that it is worthy of being something taken from the Dark Lord Voldemort, and it is very aggressive. Lin Xiu was very satisfied. After using the repair as original spell to repair his cracked bedside table, he fell asleep contentedly. When he woke up again, he saw a circle of people around Ron's bed in the dormitory. All of them were boys from various grades of Gryffindor. Everyone was listening to Ron's details of the Sorcerer's Stone level with great interest. You can't even imagine what I experienced last night. The terrifyingly large devil vine. One of its vines was as thick as my thigh, and it almost strangled me to death. The flying key link was even more thrilling. Those keys were very sharp. Lin Xiu, Harri, and I almost died when we were riding on flying brooms to find the keys. The wizard chess level has to be mentioned. You don't know, those wizard chess pieces are like little giants. If you make a wrong move in chess, they will be smashed to pieces by the wizard chess pieces with huge stone swords. I was almost crushed to death, and facing Quirrell and Voldemort directly. This is even more thrilling, Ron boasted, and those around him were stunned. But George and Fred, the Weasley brothers, knew very well what kind of character their brother Ron was. I'm afraid you only really put in some effort in the wizard chess stage, Ron, George said with a smile. The other stages of the challenge were all passed by Lin Xiu, Harri, and Hermione, right? Fred said, anyway, I don't believe you can knock the troll to the ground by yourself. If you say that it was Lin Xiu who challenged the troll alone, this matter is still very credible. The surrounding Gryffindor wizards nodded one after another, and some looked at the position of Lin Xiu's bed. Hey, Lin Xiu is awake. The surrounding Gryffindor wizards came to Lin Xiu one after another, and the Weasley twins asked excitedly, Lin Xiu. Ron said that he performed heroically when he and you protected the Philosopher's Stone yesterday. Is this true? Lin Xiu almost couldn't help laughing. Performed heroically? Last night, when they were passing the Philosopher's Stone, Lin Xiu and the others drank the Felicia Felix that Harri distributed, and they didn't encounter any obstacles at all along the way, and they passed it quickly. When Harri got the Philosopher's Stone, Quirrell and Voldemort hadn't even entered the trapdoor yet. Lin Xiu was about to tell the truth, but he saw Ron winking at him. It's almost the same as what Ron said, Lin Xiu said with a smile. Last night was indeed a hearty adventure. See, I was right, Ron said to his two brothers with a smug look. This time I passed the Philosopher's Stone test without relying on any external things, all relying on my own efforts, wisdom, and sweat. Fred, George, you two are just jealous of me. Ron, we believe you have put in a lot of sweat in this process. But when it comes to wisdom, Lin Xiu and the others fit this description better. The Weasley twins shook their heads. It's boring to listen to you bragging here. We're going to the big lake. Now the weather is good. The giant squid is basking in the sun by the lake. We can go and tickle its tentacles. So the group of people in the dormitory followed the Weasley twins to find the giant squid to play. Don't go, don't go. Ron stretched out his hand in vain, but everyone had left. Alas, he sighed, I finally have something to brag about, but Fred and Chaji ruined it. Why is it so hard to be a hero? Harri stayed at Madame Pomfrey's for a long time before he was allowed to leave the hospital. During this process, Lin Xiu, Hermione, and Ron would visit Harri from time to time, but Harri was still asleep, and Madame Pomfrey did not allow visits, only letting them look at him from a distance and leave. Fortunately, A few days later, Harri woke up smoothly and returned to the Gryffindor common room safely with a lot of gifts from various admirers. Lin Xiu and others learned from Harri that in order to prevent Voldemort from continuing to spy on the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore directly destroyed the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is gone. Ron asked, "Does that mean Flammel is going to die?" That's what I said. But when Dumbledore came to see me in the infirmary, he said, "For those who are fully sane, death is just another great adventure." Ron said, "Harri, you fainted a long time ago, so you didn't see it. Dumbledore appeared almost at the same time you killed Voldemort and fainted." "Harri, do you think Dumbledore intended you to do this?" Hermione said, "Give you your father's invisibility cloak to guide you to fight against Quirrell and Voldemort?" Harri said thoughtfully, "Dumbledore is a very interesting person. I always feel that Professor Dumbledore and Professor Snape seem to know what happened to us. They secretly gave us a lot of useful things. Professor Dumbledore seems to think that if possible, I have the right to face Voldemort. Maybe this is Dumbledore's different from other wizards." Lin Xiu said, "This adventure related to the Philosopher's Stone has come to an end. In addition, Harri, Ron, are you ready for the final exam?" "There is still a final exam?" Harri and Ron widened their eyes. "We have passed so many levels and protected the Philosopher's Stone from Voldemort, but we still have to face the final exam." Hermione looked at Harri and Ron puzzledly. "Have you never prepared for the final exam?" "Kill me." Ron fell on the sofa in the Gryffindor lounge, unwilling to move. Harri sighed. "I hope I can be unconscious for a few more days until the end of the final exam." So for a period of time, Harri and Ron began to prepare for the exam nervously. That memory does not make people feel pleasant. Harri and Ron were nervous for a whole week. But fortunately, the result was good. Lin Xiu and Hermione ranked first and second in the whole grade, and Harri and Ron passed the exam with high scores. Soon, it was the end-of-year banquet at Hogwarts. But at the end-of-year banquet, Gryffindor's initial score was not lower than Slytherin's. Although Professor Snape would uncontrollably give extra points to the girl Harri, he would also cleverly deduct points from other Gryffindor students to balance it out, so Slytherin's overall score was still ahead. The entire auditorium was full of people, and the auditorium was decorated with green and silver, representing Slytherin. On the wall behind the guest of honor, there was a huge banner with a Slytherin snake painted on it. All this was to celebrate Slytherin's winning of the College Cup for 7 consecutive years. When Dumbledore announced the current score and Slytherin ranked first in points, a thunderous cheer and stomping sound broke out at the Slytherin table. Lin Xiu looked at the excited expressions of the little wizards at the Slytherin table and couldn't help but feel some pity for them. The poor Slytherin little snakes didn't know what would happen next. Yes, it's a good performance," Dumbledore said. "However, several recent events must also be taken into account." The hall was silent in an instant. The smiles on the faces of the Slytherins disappeared, but they did not disappear, but moved to the faces of the Gryffindors. Dumbledore cleared his throat. "I still have a few final points to distribute. Let me see. By the way, Mr. Ron Weasley, he won the most exciting game of chess in Hogwarts in many years." Ron's face flushed red. The cheers of the Gryffindors almost overturned the ceiling. Percy was telling the other prefects loudly, "It's my brother. You know, my youngest brother. He successfully passed Professor McGonagall's giant chessboard array." Everyone finally calmed down. Second item, Miss Hermione Granger. Third item, Harry Potter. Fourth item, Mr. Lin Xiu. The stars on the enchanted ceiling were shaken by the cheers of Gryffindor. The noise was deafening. Hermione buried her face in her arms and cried secretly. In the end, Gryffindor's score was equal to Slytherin's. Dumbledore raised a hand, and the hall gradually quieted down again. Finally, I want to mention one person, Mr. Neville Longbottom. He always cares about his friends. I want to reward him 10 points. Except for Slytherin. Everyone stood up and cheered loudly. Neville was so surprised that his face turned pale. He had never won a point for Gryffindor. 963, but he was immediately drowned by the crowd who squeezed up to hug him. Dumbledore smiled as he watched the students celebrate and cheer. He clapped his hands gently, and immediately the green hanging ribbons turned bright red, and the silver turned gold. The huge Slytherin snake disappeared, replaced by a majestic Gryffindor lion. Snape smiled and shook hands with Professor McGonagall. He didn't seem to care about Slytherin's disastrous defeat in the House Cup. Of course, many people secretly speculated that Snape's smile might have nothing to do with the House Cup. It was purely because he saw Harry become a girl to participate in Gryffindor celebration, and was therefore in a good mood. For most of the young wizards except Slytherin, this can be said to be the most enjoyable night spent in Hogwarts this semester. After the end-of-year banquet, it seemed as if time was suddenly accelerated. Soon it was the end of the semester, and the little wizard's things were put into the suitcases. Notices were sent to each student, warning them not to use magic during the holidays. Hagrid was responsible for leading the young wizards to board the fleet across the lake, and finally, sending them to the train. Lin Xiu had already boarded the Hogwarts Express, chatting and laughing with Hermione, Harry, Ron, and others. The scenery along the way outside the window changed. The train passed through Muggle towns, and the countryside along the way became more and more green and neat. Finally, the list stopped at Platform 9 and marched forth at King's Cross Station. It took them a long time to all walk out of the platform. A shriveled old guard was guarding the ticket gate, allowing only 2 or 3 people to pass at a time, so that there would not be a large number of people coming in and out of the solid wall at the same time, attracting the attention of the Muggles. When passing through the exit to return to the Muggle world, people kept passing by Lin Xiu and his friends. Some people shouted, "Goodbye, Lin Xiu, goodbye, Harry." "Bye, Lin Xiu," Ron said enviously. "You are still so famous." Harry sighed. "The Dursleys I'm going back to are not like this." Lin Xiu and his friends passed the exit. "He's there, Mom. He's there, look." Ron's sister Ginny pointed at Harry and wanted to say something in a shrill voice. But when Ginny saw Lin Xiu, she blushed, hid behind Mrs. Weasley, and stopped talking. Everyone said goodbye at the train station. Harry sighed and got on the Dursleys' library. Ron and the Weasleys disappeared in the crowd. Ms. Oakley went to the station to pick up Lin Xiu in person, and Hermione went home with her parents. Before parting, Hermione said, "Lin Xiu, I wish you a happy holiday." Lin Xiu said, "Hermione, I wish you a happy holiday too. I will write to you." Okay. After seeing their daughter running back with a slightly red face, the Grangers looked at Lin Xiu with a smile and asked their daughter quietly, "Hermione, who is that boy?" "He's a friend. A very good friend." Chapter 61 Harry, no time to explain. Get in the car. Lin Xiu had a very fulfilling summer vacation after his first year at Hogwarts. His daily life consisted of reviewing books on various subjects and trying to explore them to a limited extent without using his wand to cast spells. After all, underage wizards could not cast spells outside of school. In addition to studying and researching magic, Lin Xiu often corresponded with Hermione, Harry, and Ron. Hermione's letters were written in very neat handwriting, while Ron's letters were written in a very sloppy manner. Of course, Lin Xiu would occasionally correspond with Hagrid to exchange some information about magical animals, but Hagrid's letters were written in a very sloppy handwriting. But Lin Xiu never received a letter from Harry. The letter he sent to Harry seemed to have sunk into the sea, with no response at all. Hermione also noticed this keenly. Ron complained to Lin Xiu several times. "Lin Xiu, you don't know, I wrote Harry 12 letters in a row, but Harry didn't reply to me even once." At the end of last semester, they had made an appointment for Lin Xiu and Harry to go to Ron's house for a few days. Harry acted as if he had completely forgotten about it. Lin Xiu was also a little puzzled at first, but soon realized that Harry was probably controlled by the house elf Dobby. In the original book, Harry met Dobby, the house elf of the Malfoy family, during the summer vacation of that year. During the first time Voldemort ravaged the wizarding world, the house elves were in a difficult situation, and Harry defeated Voldemort as a savior. So Dobby, the house elf, was born with some good feelings for Harry. When Dobby heard about the plan that was unfavorable to Harry from his master Lucius Malfoy, he decided to protect Harry Potter in his own way. Dobby intercepted all the letters that Harry could receive and did his best to prevent Harry from enrolling. Therefore, No matter how many letters Ron wrote to Harri, it was unlikely that there would be a reply, and the letters were intercepted. Lin Xiu was considering whether to take the subway to Privet Drive one day and go to see Harri's current situation in person. Ron agreed with this. He said in the letter, "If my father knew that you were going to take the subway to find Harri, he would definitely be very interested. I wonder what it feels like to ride the Muggle subway." Ron further suggested in the letter, "Lin Xiu, how about we go to see Harri together on his birthday? You take me to try riding the Muggle subway, and Fred, George, and I will pick you and Harri up at our house." Lin Xiu immediately replied in agreement. There was no other way. When a person is exposed to the mysterious and fascinating world of magic at Hogwarts, he is suddenly forbidden to use magic outside of school. This feeling is very uncomfortable. Lin Xiu is in this situation. In fact, he has tried to practice using spells in private, but he always receives warning letters from the Ministry of Magic, which is very troublesome. Ron gave a solution in the letter. The regulation prohibiting underage wizards from casting spells outside of school is actually only strict for those little wizards born in Muggle families. Those little wizards born in wizard families can basically cast spells at home at will. The main reason why Lin Xiu wanted to live in Ron's house for a while was that he could use the wand more freely at the Weasley's house. Therefore, on the night of July 31st, Harri's birthday, Lin Xiu packed his luggage and waited for Ron to come. But until late at night, when the bright moonlight illuminated the entire night sky, Lin Xiu did not see Ron's shadow. Lin Xiu wondered if Ron had remembered the agreed time wrongly or had taken the wrong road. When he was about to find an owl to send a letter to Ron to ask about the situation, he saw a small black dot appear on the moon in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the small black dot in the sky became bigger and bigger, accompanied by the roar of the car engine getting closer and closer. Lin Xiu saw its true face clearly, a green car. The car fell from the sky and staggered to a stop in front of Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu seemed to hear someone in the car calling his name. The window glass on the back seat fell off, and a man with freckles, red hair, and a long nose was holding the fallen car glass and looking at Lin Xiu, grinning. "How's it going, Lin Xiu?" Ron leaned out of the back window of the car. "Hurry up and get in the car. Let's go find Harri. We'll talk about the rest in the car." He jumped out of the car first and helped Lin Xiu load his luggage. The front door of the car opened, and the Weasley twins got out of the car and greeted Lin Xiu. "Lin Xiu, good evening." "The moonlight is so beautiful tonight," George said while helping to move the luggage. "To be honest, the parking and tail swinging I just did was pretty good. Right? Out of 10, I'll give you 11 points. Fred said, "Of course, if you didn't shake the window glass down when you parked, I'd give you 12 points. Okay, the last piece of luggage. Let's go find Harri. This time it's my turn to drive." Fred turned the steering wheel, and the car took off and flew directly into the sky. Then George, who was in the co-pilot seat, pressed a green button, and suddenly their group of people disappeared in the night. And Ron was explaining to Lin Xiu why he didn't take the subway as planned today. "My dad works at the Ministry of Magic," Ron said. "Today he came home and said Harri used magic in front of Muggles and was warned. Given Harri's character, this is very wrong," Ron said, "and Harri hasn't contacted us for so long." George, who was in the co-pilot seat, turned around. "Fred and I both felt that something was wrong, so we drove with Ron. I also think something may have happened to Harri, but..." Lin Xiu pointed to the flying car. "Will we not violate the regulations prohibiting underage wizards from casting spells outside of school if we ride in the flying car?" "Oh, that doesn't count," Ron said. "This is our father's car. We just borrowed it and didn't cast any spells on it, so the Ministry of Magic can't detect it." Lin Xiu nodded, secretly concerned. It seems that magic props like the flying car can evade the Ministry of Magic's detection to a certain extent. When the time is right, we could do a few magic collection tests. With the help of the flying car, Lin Xiu and his team found number 4 Privet, Manaheo Road, where Harri was without much effort. They didn't even look at the house number. On the entire Privet Drive, most of the houses on the second floor have more or less some decorations on the windows, and at least they are standard outer room decoration styles. But they're the house on the second floor. The door was tightly sealed by iron bars. Lin Xiu and Ron looked at each other. They both had an inexplicable feeling in their hearts that Harri must be on the second floor that was sealed by the iron bars. Sure enough, when Fred parked the flying car near the window on the second floor, Lin Xiu and the others easily saw Harri sitting on the bed with his legs hugged in a daze through the gap in the iron bars. Lin Xiu, Ron! Harri exclaimed in surprise, tiptoed to the window, pushed the window up, and talked to Lin Xiu and the others through the iron bars. What are you doing? This is... No time to explain. Lin Xiu said, Harri, get in the car. Let's go to Ron's house together. Chapter 62, The Warm Weasley Family. After some twists and turns, Lin Xiu and Ron finally rescued Harri from the Dursleys. The car flew towards the moon. The evening breeze passed through the car window, and Harri told Lin Xiu about what he had experienced during this period. Harri mentioned the house elf Dobby's warning, and what Dobby did to prevent Harri from going to Hogwarts. So, Harri, you have been out of touch for more than a month because of that house elf named Dobby? Yes, Harri said. Dobby not only intercepted the letter you wrote to me, but also cast a spell to mess up a dinner carefully prepared by the Dursleys, causing me to be locked up on the second floor. There was silence in the car for a long time. Fred said, very suspicious, obviously very strange. George echoed. Why did the house elf named Dobby do this? This question, except for Lin Xiu, who has read the original book, no one can answer it. Is there a possibility that the elf named Dobby, just as he said, just wanted to help Harri? Lin Xiu said, it's just that the values of house elves are very different from those of ordinary people like us. Things that house elves think are okay are unacceptable to us. The people in the car were thoughtful. What Lin Xiu said makes sense, but since this matter is not clear, let's not worry about it for now. Fred said, anyway, George, Ron and I are very happy to come out to pick you up this time. Thank you. Harri was a little moved. You're welcome. George smiled and said, we can drive the flying car out for a ride this time, and we have a lot of fun. Fred, you drove too far to the west. Fred looked at a pointer 763 on the car dial and turned the steering wheel. The flying car turned a corner smoothly and drove east. Lin Xiu saw this scene, and his curiosity was aroused. He had just checked it carefully. This flying car was definitely transformed from an ordinary car using magic. Lin Xiu wanted to find out how the modifiers added the right magic to the Muggle products. The driving force of ordinary cars is to burn gasoline and convert the energy of gasoline into kinetic energy, so that the car can brake and run. How does the flying car fly? Is it a suspension spell or some other spell? How does the car control the flying speed? Does this car still need to consume gasoline? Or does it consume magic power? Lin Xiu felt like he was being scratched by a kitten, and he couldn't help it. He was not only interested in this car, but also the trend of combining magic and modern products embodied in this flying car. If you understand this concept, you can effectively combine more magic and modern products. For example, a magic gun that can fire spells as fast as a machine gun. For example, a spell-proof vest that can protect against spells like a bulletproof vest. George, Lin Xiu looked at the co-pilot's seat. This flying car, you didn't make it, did you? This car was made by our father, said Ron. He works in the most boring department of the Ministry of Magic, the misuse of Muggle artifacts. But he is crazy about everything related to Muggles. Fred said with a smile, our shed is full of Muggle things. He disassembles them, casts magic on them, and reassembles them. If he comes to search my house, he has to arrest himself. Mom is almost crazy about this. We're the main road. George, Sebk, looked down from the co-pilot's seat. We'll be home in 10 minutes. Fortunately, it's dawn. A faint red glow appeared on the horizon, and the sun came out. Fred lowered the car a little, and Lin Xiu could see fields and clusters of trees forming various dark patterns. We are a little outside the village, George said. This village is called Ottery, St. Catchpole. The car flew lower and lower, and a red sun had already appeared between the trees. Landing, Fred shouted, and the car shook slightly and touched the ground. They landed next to a dilapidated garage, surrounded by a small yard. Lin Xiu looked at Ron's house. It seemed to be a big pigsty made of stone before, and then some rooms were added nearby, stacked up layer by layer to form a tall building, crooked, as if it was built by magic. There were 4 or 5 chimneys on the red roof, and a sign was inserted diagonally in front of the house, with the word "The Burrow" written on it. There were some high-top leather boots covered with mud, and a rusty crucible throne next to the gate, and a few brown fat chickens were scratching the ground in the yard looking for insects to eat. Ron said, "Not bad, right? It's full of life and warm." Lin Xiu said, "I think it should be quite comfortable to live here." "You're right," the Weasley twins said in unison. "Lin Xiu, you really have a good eye." Harri said happily, "Great. I like it here too." He thought of the Dursleys on Privet Drive, which couldn't even match a brick of the Burrow. Everyone got out of the car. "Now let's go upstairs quietly," said Fred. "Wait for Mom to call us for breakfast." At that time, Ron ran downstairs and said, "Mom, look who's here." She must be very happy when she sees Lin Xiu and Harri, and no one will know that we used the car. "Okay," Ron said. "Come on. Lin Xiu, Harri, follow me." They entered the house. The kitchen was small and quite crowded, with a clean wooden table and a few chairs in the middle. There were 3 layers of books on the mantel: Enchanting Your Cheese, The Magic of Baking Bread, Conjure a Feast, etc. All magic books. The dishes in the sink were washing themselves, and the tinkling sound was like a background music. The old radio next to it said, "Next is the Magic Time, performed by the famous witch singer Celestina Beck." The wall clock on the wall opposite the pool has no numbers, but instead has the places or states that each family member might be in, such as home, school, and work. The entire wall clock has 9 golden needles, each with the name of a Weasley family member engraved on it. When Lin Xiu followed Ron and the others to the Burrow, the golden needles with the names of the 3 Weasley brothers all jumped to the home position. At this time, a heavy sound of footsteps sounded upstairs. "Where the hell did you 3 guys go?" Mrs. Weasley walked downstairs quickly and appeared in front of everyone. Fred whispered. "We're done," George added in a low voice. Mrs. Weasley, wearing a printed apron with a wand in her pocket, walked in front of everyone with the wind. She looked at Lin Xiu and Harri first. "Dear Lin Xiu, dear Harri, I'm so happy to see you." Then, Mrs. Weasley looked at the 3 Weasley brothers with anger. "The bed is empty. There is no note. The car is gone. You may die outside. You may be seen by others." Then, Mrs. Weasley gently comforted Lin Xiu and Harry's emotions. "Of course, I'm not talking about you," Ron said, unconvinced. "Mom, the Dursley family let Harry starve and sealed his windows." "Ron Weasley, you'd better pray that I won't seal your windows too," Mrs. Weasley said gently to Lin Xiu and Harri. "Come on, you should have breakfast." She poured 10 sausages into the plate in front of Lin Xiu, and Harry's plate, who was sitting opposite Lin Xiu, was also filled with sausages. Then Mrs. Weasley added 5 poached eggs to each person. "Eat more, don't be hungry." At this time, a red-haired girl in long pajamas ran down from upstairs. "Mom, have you seen my slippers?" "Honey, it's on top of the cat." The red-haired girl saw Lin Xiu and Harri. Lin Xiu smiled and said, "Hello." He had recognized that this little girl was Ginny, the daughter of the Weasley family, whom he had met at the train station before. Ginny looked at Lin Xiu. Her eyes gradually widened and finally ran back faster than when she came. The Weasley twins looked at each other and chuckled softly. Harri asked curiously, "What happened to that girl just now?" "Her name is Ginny," Ron whispered. "She's my sister. She has been talking about Lin Xiu this summer. To be honest, it's a bit annoying." "That's right. She might want Lin Xiu's autograph," Fred said with a smile. "But this is also very strange. I remember that when Ginny was a child, she liked the story of Harry defeating Voldemort very much. But now she remembers Lin Xiu's name. I remember this very clearly," George whispered while eating breakfast. "At the end of last school year, when Ginny and her mother came to the train station to pick us up, Ginny became like this." Under Mrs. Weasley's gaze, everyone swept away the breakfast on the 5 plates. It's great," Fred put down the tableware and said, "I think I have to go to bed. No." Mrs. Weasley said ruthlessly, "You asked for it by not sleeping all night, and now you 3 brothers have to clear the garden gnomes for me. They're making trouble again." Ron begged for mercy. "Oh, Mom." Mrs. Weasley was unmoved. "There's no use begging for mercy. Anyway, if I find another gnome in the garden when I check, you just wait and see." The three Weasley brothers yawned, complained, and walked out lazily. Mrs. Weasley originally wanted Lin Xiu and Harry to rest, but Lin Xiu and Harry wanted to go together to eliminate the goblins and see what the goblins looked like. When they arrived at the garden, the Weasley twins looked at each other and laughed. "It's so boring to just catch goblins. How about we have a competition? How about who catches more goblins? The winner can ask the loser to help do a small thing." Ron was not convinced. "Okay, let's compete. Who's afraid of who?" Harry also rolled up his sleeves silently. The people present were all Gryffindors, and they were all very competitive. And Lin Xiu also decided to accept the challenge. He had understood one thing from his past experience, that whenever there was a competition, people's emotions would easily fluctuate, and it would be easier to drop the emotional treasure chest. For Lin Xiu, who had the non-human constitution, catching goblins in the competition was a piece of cake. Why wouldn't you want a treasure chest that you picked up for free? Chapter 63. The Secret Passages of Hogwarts. Going to Diagon Alley, the Weasley family's garden is very large, with weeds everywhere, many trees with tangled roots around the corners, and various plants growing in each flower bed. There's also a green pond not far away, with many frogs in it. After Lin Xiu and his friends each chose an area in the Weasley family's garden, the goblin catching competition was about to begin. Before the competition began, Ron demonstrated to Lin Xiu and his friends how the Weasley family usually dealt with goblins. Ron first bent down, buried his head in the peony, and reached out to search in the haystack. A moment later, a violent struggle sounded from the haystack, and Ron struggled to pull out an ugly yellow thing the size of a human head from the ground. "What a big potato!" Harry exclaimed. "Ron, your mother is so amazing. The potatoes I ate before were only the size of a fist. This is not a potato, this is a goblin." Ron said they are pests that will dig holes in the ground and eat the roots of plants. The area where they exist is full of small mounds and pits on the ground. All the surrounding plants will suffer. The goblin in Ron's hand was very small, with rough and tough skin and a bald head. It looked like a huge potato. No wonder Harry mistook the goblin for a potato. "Let me go! Let me go!" the goblin screamed. Ron grabbed the goblin's ankle and lifted it upside down. "Lin Xiu, Harry, you are in for a treat. This is how you deal with goblins." As he spoke, he lifted the goblin above his head and then began to swing his arms in a big circle like a lasso. The goblin's scream became even more shrill. "Let me go," Harry said hesitantly. "Isn't this too cruel to them?" "Goblins are pests," Ron said, "and I won't hurt them. I just want to make them dizzy so that they can't find the goblin hole and can't harm the plants in the garden. We have always done this." He let go, and the goblin flew more than 10 meters away and landed in the wild behind the fence. "Look, that's it," Ron said. "Lin Xiu, Harry, you all learned it, right? Then let's officially start the goblin catching competition. I have a question. When we catch goblins, do we have to catch them alive?" Lin Xiu said, "Since goblins are pests, do we need to kill them? For example, use some harmful spells. We can't hurt them." The three Weasley brothers shook their heads at the same time. Dad thinks goblins are very interesting. He is very tolerant of them. In addition, we can't use magic wands. There are crops planted in the fields, and spells may hurt the crops. Okay, as Fred shouted start, Lin Xiu and the others all started working in the Weasley family's garden. The three Weasley brothers were very fast, catching a goblin almost every minute and throwing it far out of the garden. Every time they threw a goblin out of the garden, the Weasley twins would shout out loudly, "I caught a goblin. I caught 2 more." And Ron would count quietly, 1, 2. At first, Harry still sympathized with the goblins who could talk. He felt that whether it was the Weasley brothers who swung the goblins out of the garden, or Lin Xiu who suggested to root out the goblins, it was not humane. But when Harry caught the first goblin in a hole under a dead tree, and was about to gently place the goblin outside the garden and drive it away from Weasley Garden, the goblin bit his finger. The goblin just hung on Harry's hand. Without the wand, it was a bit difficult for Harry to get rid of the goblin. In the end, Lin Xiu, who was near Harry, slapped the goblin in Harry's hand, and the goblin was stunned and opened his mouth. "Thank you, Lin Xiu," Harry said. "I think your suggestion just now makes sense. Goblins are pests. You can't be soft on them." Lin Xiu smiled, and threw the goblin he slapped from Harry's hand out of the garden fence. Fred saw it and exclaimed, "Beautiful. Lin Xiu, you must have thrown it 30 meters away just now." Fred said, "You are much better than Ron. When he threw the goblin out, he couldn't even get past the tree stump 15 meters away. I was just sleepy and had no strength." Ron tried to refute, "If I had enough sleep, I would definitely throw the goblin 20 meters away in one breath." The Weasley twins smiled. "In fact, it's not difficult to catch goblins because goblins are not very smart." George said. He raised the things in his hand. "Look, I caught 5 goblins at once." Then George swung the goblin in his hand back and forth, and after it fainted, he threw it out of the garden and clapped his hands. "Okay, I have caught 18 goblins." Fred said, "I caught 19 goblins. As far as I know, Ron has only caught 5 goblins in total, and Harry has caught 1 more than Ron. Lin Xiu, what about you?" "So far, I have caught 2 goblins in total," Lin Xiu said, "but I will catch a lot of goblins later." "What do you mean, there will be more goblins later?" The 3 Weasley brothers and Harry all looked at Lin Xiu. Ron felt that he had already lost the goblin catching competition, and there was no need to struggle. The Weasley twins felt that they had a high chance of winning, so they were very relaxed. And Harry was having a lot of fun. "Hey, Lin Xiu, why did you block the whole dub by the goblins?" "This way they won't dare to come out," George said. "Why don't you use the wand to create and destroy?" "I plan to make a fire and smoke the goblins out from underground." Lin Xiu said, "I tried to catch goblins in the traditional way before, but the efficiency was too low." "Will this work?" Ron said, "As far as I know, the holes dug by the goblins underground are complicated, and the smoke method is unlikely to work. The smoke can't reach the bottom. So I made 2 preparations." Lin Xiu said, "On the one hand, I added some astringent tobacco and dried peppers from Mrs. Weasley to the smoke-making materials to create a spicy mist that sinks to the bottom. On the other hand, I blocked many holes dug by the goblins in the garden. When the spicy smoke sinks deep into the goblin holes, it's time for me to catch the goblins." Just 2 minutes after the pungent smoke of dried peppers came out, there was a movement underground. The movement was small at first, and then it gradually accumulated. Finally, many goblins emerged from the only 2 goblin holes left beside Lin Xiu. These potato-like goblins no longer had time to shout to Lin Xiu, "Let me go quickly." They were all busy escaping. At this time, Lin Xiu was guarding in front of the goblin hole. If the goblins dared to drill out of the hole, they would be caught. Soon, with Lin Xiu standing at the center, goblins were flying all over the Weasley garden. In less than 10 minutes, the Weasley garden became clean and tidy, with no trace of goblins at all. Lin Xiu roughly counted and found that he had caught 123 goblins at one time by blocking the door and releasing chilly smoke. The number of goblins he caught alone was more than the total number of the others. This impressed Harry and the others. Harry said, "Lin Xiu, your brain is too fast." Ron said, "Although Fred and George often tease me, I have to say that they are experts in catching goblins, but now they have been surpassed by you. All the goblins were driven away. This is a great job." Fred said with a smile, "How did you think of using smoke to smoke goblins?" "When I was in the orphanage before, I saw others use smoke to repel insects." Lin Xiu said, "A genius idea. It's just a little spicy and pungent." George said, "Look, Harry and Ron are choking and crying. Achoo, achoo, achoo." Ron and Harry were both sneezing. Lin Xiu also heard the system prompt sound at the right time. "Please give me flowers, ding." The Weasley twins' happy mood is detected. Drawing a treasure chest for the host. Congratulations to the host. You won a silver treasure chest. Looking at this description, Lin Xiu nodded with satisfaction. "Not bad. I got a silver treasure chest." Just then, the door slammed. "I'm back," George said. "Dad is back." The 3 Weasley brothers hurried back to the house through the garden, and Harry followed behind them. And Lin Xiu was a little behind. He was in a sheltered place, so that the treasure chest was opened. Ding! The silver treasure chest has been opened. Congratulations to the host. You have obtained the complete list of secret passages in Hogwarts. The complete list of secret passages. Since the Weasley twins got the Marauders map from Filch, they have gradually learned more about the secret passages in various parts of Hogwarts. After using it, you will know the road information in various parts of Hogwarts very well, and you will remember the locations of all the secret passages in Hogwarts. Lin Xiu chose to use it without hesitation. The things opened from the treasure chest this time are quite practical. At least, Lin Xiu will not have to worry about getting lost in Hogwarts in the future. It didn't take long to open the treasure chest this time. Lin Xiu and Harri almost entered the house at the same time. Oh, a red-haired man with a bald head was slumped on a chair in the Weasley kitchen. He was wearing a green, the long robe made him look a little dusty. From the way the Weasley brothers addressed him, Lin Xiu realized that this was the brothers' father, Arthur Weasley. After Mr. Weasley briefly talked about how he worked overtime last night, he soon found that there were two guests at home. After he saw the lightning scar on Harry's head, he immediately realized Harry's identity. After a simple greeting, Mr. Weasley looked at Lin Xiu. "I think you're Lin Xiu, right? Nice to meet you. Ron mentioned you to me. Welcome to the Weasley family. I'm sorry, I've been working overtime at the Ministry of Magic recently, and I'm a little confused. When did you arrive? Your dear sons drove your charming car to bring Lin Xiu and Harri here last night." Mrs. Weasley stared at Mr. Weasley with a bad look. "Really?" Weasley Mr. Sly said in surprise. "So you drove that car? Is the car's performance good? How does it feel to fly?" Mrs. Weasley's eyes were full of fire. Frightened, Mr. Weasley quickly changed his words. "I mean, it's really wrong for you to do this, children. It's simply unforgivable." He coaxed and deceived, and finally calmed Mrs. Weasley's anger. After a while Mrs. Weasley's attention was not here, Mr. Weasley whispered to Lin Xiu. "Lin Xiu, you must know a lot about muggles. I have seen muggles buy a rubber duck floating on the water before. What is it used for?" "Oh, it's a toy for children to use when bathing, used to attract children's attention so that they will not move around and choke on water when bathing." "So that's it," Mr. Weasley muttered to himself. At this time, the cry of an owl came from outside the window. Mr. Weasley went to get the letter and soon returned to the dining table. "It's a letter from the school," Mr. Weasley said. Lin Xiu, Harri, and Ron both received a parchment envelope with green words on the front. Mr. Weasley said with emotion, "Dumbledore is indeed very powerful. He must know that Lin Xiu and Harri are here." Lin Xiu flipped through the letter. The letter contained all kinds of details that the second-year students of Hogwarts wanted to buy. Mrs. Weasley had finished her housework. She took Ron's letter and frowned for a while. "It's a bit to ask for Lockhart's book, but I will find a way to solve it," she said to Lin Xiu and Harri. "It seems that it's time to go to Diagon Alley for work." Chapter 64. Snape. "Where is I, Harri? Where is I, a big Harry?" Mrs. Weasley originally planned to take the whole family to Diagon Alley the next morning. But not long after dinner, the Weasley family's owl delivered two more letters. One was to Mr. Weasley, and the other was to Lin Xiu. According to the secret leak of the Weasley twins, the letter to Mr. Weasley was written by Professor Snape. No one knows what was written in the letter that Professor Snape sent to Mr. Weasley. But after receiving the letter, the date for the Weasley family to go to Diagon Alley was postponed a little. Harry always felt that Professor Snape's letter might have something to do with him. In his eyes, Professor Snape seemed to have a problem with most people. Harry was very worried about this, and he was worried that Mr. Weasley and Professor Snape would conflict. But Lin Xiu thought that the time change was good, because the letter that the owl sent to him was written by Hermione. In the letter, she exchanged some daily situations with Lin Xiu and asked about Lin Xiu and Ron's situation of picking up Harry. Finally, Hermione said in the letter, "I have to buy textbooks for the new semester next Wednesday. How about we meet in Diagon Alley? I will probably stay near Diagon Alley with my parents for a while on April 27th. Please reply to me." Next Wednesday is exactly the time that Mr. Weasley changed after receiving Professor Snape's letter. Lin Xiu and his friends can just run into Hermione. I haven't seen Hermione for so many days. Xiu really misses her a little. In addition, It is said that the best-selling author, the famous Gilderoy Lockhart, is doing a book signing at Flourish and Blots in Diagon Alley at this time. Lin Xiu wants to go and see this guy because Lockhart will become Lin Xiu's favorite in the next year. In Harry's defense against the dark arts professor. In the original book, Lockhart is a fame-loving show-off, and the only thing he is proficient in is the Oblivion Charm. But he has forcibly marketed himself as a celebrity in the magic world, confusing a large number of people, and countless people have been manipulated by him to buy his expensive series of books. Lin Xiu really wants to know how Lockhart did it. After all, Lin Xiu's emotional treasure box system is closely related to the emotions of others, and Lockhart's means of manipulating other people's emotions are also of reference value to Lin Xiu. After dinner, Ron whispered to Lin Xiu and Harri, "You can live in my bedroom for the time being, come on. I'll take you to see it." Lin Xiu and Harri followed Ron out of the kitchen, through a very narrow corridor, and came to a staircase with uneven heights. There was a half-open door at the entrance of the third-floor stairs, and Lin Xiu saw a pair of bright brown eyes. But when he just turned his head to look, the door closed with a click. "It's Ginny," Ron said. "Strange. She's never been so shy before. She almost never closes the door." Ron looked at Lin Xiu and shook his head in confusion. Finally, Lin Xiu and his friends climbed 2 more floors and finally came to a door with peeling paint. There was a small sign on the door that read, "Ron's room." The ceiling of the room was tilted, but it was warm, as if the sun was shining in. Everything in Ron's room looked a dazzling orange-yellow. The sheets, the walls to the ceiling. Ron's magic textbooks were piled messily in the corner, and next to them were some comic books with the name, The Adventures of Mad Muggle Martin Miggs. His wand was placed on a large fish tank on the windowsill. There were no fish in the fish tank, but there were many frog eggs. On the ground, a deck of automatically shuffled cards made a rustling sound, and outside the small window, you could see the Weasley garden below. After Lin Xiu and his team held a goblin-catching competition, the goblins around the garden were lining up, sneaking away from the Weasleys from all directions. Ron looked at Lin Xiu and Harri nervously and coughed lightly. "The room is a little small," Ron said. "Maybe it's not as good as the room you have at the Muggle house. There's a ghoul living above my room. He always knocks on the pipes and hums. Maybe it's because the financial situation of the Weasleys has never been very good." Lin Xiu could feel a little inferiority from Ron's words. "This room is very good," Lin Xiu said. "To be honest, I like it very much." "Lin Xiu is right," Harri said. "This is the best room I've ever seen." Lin Xiu and Harri stayed at the Weasleys for almost a week. This week was very fulfilling, because the Weasleys are always full of surprises. Lin Xiu saw with his own eyes that when Harri was looking at an ordinary-looking mirror, the mirror suddenly said fiercely, "Tuck your shirt into your waistband. Sloppy." When the ghouls in the attic felt that the house was too quiet, they would howl loudly and bang on the pipes. The Weasley twins spent a lot of time in their room tinkering with inventions, and from time to time there were large and small explosions. The most important thing that Lin Xiu liked about the Weasley family was that the people in the Weasley family were very friendly. Mrs. Weasley would always add food to Lin Xiu from time to time, and while adding food, she would say, "You can't starve to thinness in the Weasley family." Mr. Weasley often discussed the life of Muggles with Lin Xiu with great interest during meals, especially the post office about electrical sockets and letters. After Lin Xiu told Mr. Weasley how ordinary Muggles use wired telephones for long-distance communication, Mr. Weasley exclaimed, "It's wonderful. What a genius. How many ways have Muggles come up with to live without magic?" When the day they had scheduled to go to Diagon Alley came, Mrs. Weasley woke Lin Xiu and his friends up early in the morning. Breakfast was 5 or 6 bacon sandwiches per person, and Lin Xiu thought it tasted pretty good. Afterwards, Mrs. Weasley picked up a flower pot from the kitchen mantel and looked inside. "There's not much flu powder left, Arthur." She sighed. "I have to buy some today." "Okay, guess first. Lin Xiu, Harri, who will come first?" Mrs. Weasley handed the flower pot to Lin Xiu and Harri. Lin Xiu saw a small layer of shiny silver powder in the flower pot. He was quite surprised. "Is this flu powder? Where are the raw materials? What is the principle of using flu powder for ultra-long distance transmission?" After figuring out the principle of flue powder, can we find a way to develop some special magic props? Harri was stunned. What should I do? Lin Xiu and Harri have never used flue powder to travel. Ron suddenly said, sorry, I forgot. Never used it. Mr. Weasley asked, then how did you get to Diagon Alley to buy school supplies last year? Lin Xiu said, I'm Snape. Professor Laughter operat me there. Harri said, and I took the underground, really? Mr. Weasley asked excitedly, how on earth is the underground? Don't ask now, Arthur, Mrs. Weasley said. Traveling with flue powder is slower than apparition, but much faster than the underground. But, my goodness, if you two have never used it before, the Weasley twins stepped forward. They'll be fine, Mom. Lin Xiu, Harri, you watch us do it first. Fred first grabbed a handful of the shiny silver powder, walked to the stove, and threw the powder into the stove. With a whoosh, the flames turned green and rose higher than Fred. He walked straight into the fire, shouted Diagon Alley, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then it was George, who also disappeared in the magic fire. Lin Xiu was the third. Remember, when you say where you're going, you have to enunciate clearly, or you might be sent somewhere else. Mrs. Weasley said, don't go through the wrong furnace door when you come out. Remember, as soon as you enter the fire, say where you're going, Ron said, hold your elbows tight. Close your eyes, Mrs. Weasley said. There's soot, don't move around, Ron said. Or you might fall out of another furnace door. Don't come out too early. Wait until you see Fred and George. Lin Xiu took a pinch of flue powder and walked to the edge of the flame. He sprinkled the powder into the fire, walked forward, and the flames soared. For point 4, he said calmly, Diagon Alley. Lin Xiu was not nervous, but was carefully feeling the process, comparing it with the difference between apparition and disapparition. The magic fire was like a hot wind, wrapping him up. Lin Xiu felt like he was sucked into a huge socket hole, and his whole body was spinning rapidly. He clamped his elbow tightly. Finally, he stopped, covered with cold dust, and appeared in a fireplace. Fred and George pulled Lin Xiu out. Then, the three of them waited together. However, what Lin Xiu didn't expect was that Professor Snape in a black robe also appeared here. Professor Snape, why are you here? Just passing by. After that, Snape stopped talking and stared at the fireplace for some time. Soon, the magic fire kept flashing in the fireplace. The Weasley family basically arrived safely. When Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were counting the children, they suddenly found that someone seemed to be missing. Professor Snape appeared behind Mr. Weasley like a ghost. Where is Harri? Chapter 65. There was a loud bang in the clear sky, and Snape made a brilliant appearance. Harri, after hearing what Professor Snape said, Mr. Weasley looked at Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu, Harri entered the fireplace after you. Didn't he come out? Lin Xiu shook his head. No, Mr. Weasley, after I came out of this fireplace, it was you. Poor Harri, Mrs. Weasley said anxiously. It must be because he used the flue powder for the first time and went to the wrong fireplace. Oh, he would appear in any fireplace. Don't worry, flue powder travel is very safe. There will be no accidents. Mr. Weasley said, I know a few people in the Flynn Network administration. I can contact them to find out where Harri might have gone. Professor Snape said nothing, just watched it all. Mr. Weasley hurriedly sprinkled another handful of flue powder into the fireplace they came out of. The magic fire jumped up high, and he stuck his whole head in. Lin Xiu found that Mr. Weasley's head seemed to have completely disappeared, but he himself did not seem to be hurt. Fred explained to Lin Xiu, Dad is talking to his colleagues in the Ministry of Magic. After sprinkling the flue powder, just stick your head into the flue powder, and you can use the Flue Network to talk directly to people in another place. Ron was almost scared when he saw a head coming out of the flames of the fireplace for the first time and talking. Ron snorted and didn't dare speak. On the one hand, it was because he was more worried about Harry's whereabouts. On the other hand, it was because Snape, who had a gloomy face, was next to him. The flames in the fireplace disappeared, and Mr. Weasley came out of the fireplace with soot on his face and said happily, I figured it out. The last place Harri appeared was not far from here, in Nocturne Alley. Fred and George's eyes lit up. Nocturne Alley? Nocturne Alley is another magical commercial district near Diagon Alley. There are many shops related to black magic in it. These shops sell all kinds of strange magic items. The Weasley twins have always wanted to visit Knockturn Alley, but usually some strange and scary people would walk around in Knockturn Alley, so Mrs. Weasley never let them come. The Weasley twins looked at each other. Harry went to Knockturn Alley. Should we go and pick him up? Don't go to Knockturn Alley, Mrs. Weasley shouted at them. Arthur and I will go find Harry. Professor Snape, where are you going? I want to get Harry back. Snape strode to an old wooden street sign with the name Knockturn Alley and then entered the alley on the side. Mr. Weasley quickly followed, and Mrs. Weasley glared at the eager Weasley twins before leaving. Wait here for us to come back. Don't be like this, Mom, said Fred. We haven't been to Knockturn Alley yet. Mom, we're not just new kids anymore, George said. Besides, there is strength in numbers. Fred and I will go to Knockturn Alley together to help you find Harry faster. Harry fell from our fireplace, and I feel it is my responsibility to find Harry back. Ron said, Mom, let me go too. Ron's words finally convinced Mrs. Weasley. Okay, but you must follow me or Arthur closely, don't run around, and don't go too deep. You can only stay in the safer places at the outermost edge. Finally, Mrs. Weasley made a plan to stop the bandits. She asked Percy to stay in Diagon Alley with Ginny, and the Weasley twins and Ron followed her in to find Harry. Lin Xiu also went with them. Harry is my friend. I will help find Harry too. Of course he knew that with Professor Snape there, Harry would not be in any danger in Knockturn Alley. Lin Xiu just wanted to go to Knockturn Alley while Mr. Weasley and his friends were protecting him. If possible, he also wanted to visit Borgin and Burke's, where Voldemort had worked when he was young. After Mrs. Weasley gave several careful instructions, she took Lin Xiu and his friends into Knockturn Alley. Some sections near Diagon Alley were relatively normal, but the further you went into Knockturn Alley, the dirtier and darker the road ahead became, as if the sun never shone on it. There seemed to be shops selling black magic on both sides of this dirty alley. Some of the windows displayed some shrunken heads in a gloomy manner. Across two stores, large cages were filled with huge black spiders. Ron's face turned pale, while the Weasley twins were extremely excited. Mrs. Weasley had to emphasize again and again. We came in to find Harry this time. Remember, don't forget to walk deep into Knockturn Alley, and you must move within my field of vision. Don't worry, Mom. The Weasley twins patted their chests and assured, then ran away with a laugh. Ron tried not to pay attention to the huge black spiders and also walked along the shops in Diagon Alley, looking through the windows at the fireplaces of the shops and paying attention to whether Harry would appear in those fireplaces. Lin Xiu walked in Knockturn Alley for a while, and when he came to a very remote path, he noticed a group of ragged wizards whispering and looking in a certain direction from time to time. He followed the line of sight of the group of wizards and saw a familiar figure whose red hair was extremely eye-catching even in the dark Knockturn Alley. Harry, who had become a girl, was forced into a corner by an old witch holding a stack of dead people's nails. Are you lost, dear? The old witch grinned at Harry, revealing her mossy teeth. Come with me. I'll help you find your way home. Harry seemed a little panicked. No, Lin Xiu briefly evaluated whether it would be better for him to bring Harry here now, or to go back to find Mrs. Weasley or Professor Snape. Going back to find someone might be a safer option. But now Harry is in the state of girl, and Knockturn Alley is too dangerous for him. If he goes back to find someone, Harry might encounter some accidents. Finally, Lin Xiu strode towards Harry, and with the inhuman constitution opened from Hagrid's emotional treasure chest, he squeezed a group of people along the way. The old witch was frightened by Lin Xiu's momentum, and the nails in her hand were knocked over and fell on the back of her foot. She fled into a dark corner, staring at Lin Xiu and Harry. Lin Xiu, Harry felt relieved and said hoarsely, I took the wrong road. Flew powder. Come with me. Everyone is looking for you. Lin Xiu took Harry back, but found that his way was blocked by a group of wizards with bad intentions. The leader was the old witch who was scared away before. You knocked over my things, and you want to leave like this? Harry frowned and said, It's obvious that you didn't hold it firmly and dropped it on the ground. Harry, it doesn't make sense to reason with them. Lin Xiu said, What should we do? Harry was a little worried. There are so many adult wizards. We are sure we can't beat them. Facing the siege of this group of wizards in Nocturne Alley, Lin Xiu was not very scared, but he also felt that there was no need to fight them. He turned to Harry and said, I have a good idea that can solve the current problem. What's the good idea? You shout for help. Can I just shout for help? Harry was puzzled. When I was chased and beaten by Dudley at the Dursleys' house, shouting for help never worked. The Dursleys would only praise Dudley for his good fighting skills. It's different now, Lin Xiu said. Harry, you entered Hogwarts, and you have so many people who care about you. Harry was a little skeptical about Lin Xiu's words, but he still did it anyway. Help! Harry, a girl shouted. Who will save me? Nothing happened, but the group of wizards who surrounded them laughed. Dear, you shouted so softly. The old witch who was making things difficult for them laughed. My crow with a broken leg shouted louder than you. What should I do? Harry looked at Lin Xiu nervously. I shouted for help, but it was useless. You shouted too softly. The sound can't even be heard in this alley. Help! Harry shouted at the top of his lungs. Nothing happened. The group of malicious wizards gradually approached. Harry, your cry for help is too powerful. Lin Xiu ignored the group of wizards around him. You are now in the state of a girl. Your cry for help needs to contain emotions like a girl who is really in danger. You have to imagine that you are a weak, helpless, and desperate girl, and your cry for help should be full of fear. When people are extremely scared, they will subconsciously ask for help. Harry, think about it. If you want to ask for help now, who is the first name that comes to your mind? The first name that popped up in your mind. Countless faces flashed through Harry's mind. Lin Xiu was right beside him, and Ron was too weak, so it was useless to call their names. Afterwards, Harry responded to Dumbledore. But at the end of last semester, when Harry and Lin Xiu experienced the adventure test of the Philosopher's Stone, he always felt that Dumbledore was guiding them. Harry did not feel disgusted with Dumbledore because of this, but he would not get too close to Dumbledore now. Hagrid was the guide who led Harry into the magical world. But Harry always felt that Hagrid was not very reliable at some times. As for Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley, they were both good people, but they were Ron's parents after all. After thinking about it, a name that he himself had never thought of emerged in Harry's mind: Severus Snape. It can be said that this was the first time that Harry felt what favoritism was from Professor Snape in this school year. When Harry became a girl, Professor Snape racked his brains to add points for him and did not care about other people's opinions at all. Professor Snape, help! Harry shouted, Professor, save me. It still seemed that nothing happened. Professor Snape? Why should he save your life? The group of wizards laughed even more unscrupulously. He looks more like a dark wizard than many dark wizards. But Lin Xiu noticed. Nocturne Alley, which was originally full of whispers, became quiet at some point. An old witch with sores all over her face stared at the red hair of the girl Harry. This hair is so beautiful. Give it to me. She took out a knife and wanted to cut off Harry's long red hair. But before she could do anything, the old witch noticed something was wrong. Why is the ground loose? The group of wizards surrounding Lin Xiu and Harry looked down subconsciously. Boom! With a loud bang, a huge hole appeared under the feet of the group of wizards, and they all fell into it, falling all over, and they didn't know whether they were dead or alive. Lin Xiu, the method you taught is really useful, Harry said excitedly. What's the principle? I shouted Professor Snape's name, and they all fell into the big hole. It turns out that Professor Snape's name is so powerful. Lin Xiu smiled. Professor Snape was looking for Harry everywhere in Nocturne Alley at this moment, and it would certainly be useful for Harry to ask him for help. If Harry's call for help must be called a spell, Lin Xiu would like to call it Snape's Flying Curse. This spell works well for a girl named Harry. When Lin Xiu led Harry to the alley, he ran into Snape. Professor Snape. Harry was a little nervous, praying that Professor Snape didn't hear his call for help. Why are you here? I was just passing by. Snape was obviously in a good mood, and his words were less aggressive. This is not a good place. I'll take you out. Also, Snape stared at the coal dust on Harry's body, and the next moment, Harry seemed to have been refurbished, becoming clean and tidy again, and even the glasses on his nose were intact. After a while, Lin Xiu felt that the coal dust he had gotten from the fireplace before was also cleaned up. It seemed that Snape had also cast a silent cleaning spell on him. "It's much better this way." Snape said, "Follow me." They passed through the winding alleys and finally came to the bright sunshine. "This is the Diagon Alley area." Snape took out his wand and pointed it to the sky. The blue fireworks exploded in the air. Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley hurried over with Ron. "Harry," Mr. Weasley panted, "I hope you are not in danger just now. It was Lin Xiu who found me first, and then Professor Snape brought us all out." Harry said, "Thank God." Mrs. Weasley breathed a sigh of relief. "Professor Snape, thanks to you. After all, I am Harry's teacher. This is what I should do." Snape turned to Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley. "By the way, I told you something before. I hope you can think about it carefully." Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley nodded solemnly. "Okay." Snape nodded. "Then I'll leave first. Harry, see you in the new semester at Hogwarts." "Wait a minute." Snape was stopped by Mr. Weasley. "Professor Snape, you just took Lin Xiu and Harry out of Knockturn Alley. Did you find anything strange?" "Strange things?" "Yes. The Ministry of Magic received a report that Knockturn Alley seemed to have been attacked by unknown people, and a big hole was punched in the ground, and 13 wizards fell into it. I didn't notice it." Snape shook his head. "I just passed by." Harry opened his mouth, but finally remained silent. He thought it would be better not to say what he had just experienced in Knockturn Alley. Snape walked away quickly, and Mr. Weasley took Lin Xiu and the others to Gringotts to withdraw money to buy things for the new semester. As soon as he saw the white marble steps of Gringotts Bank, Lin Xiu saw a familiar figure. "Lin Xiu! Lin Xiu! Come here." Hermione waved at Lin Xiu on the white steps of Gringotts, and finally ran down to greet them, her brown hair flying behind her. "Hermione, long time no see," Lin Xiu said. "You look different from last semester." "Really?" Hermione said with a smile. "Maybe it's because I asked my father to treat my teeth." "No change," Ron said, "and it's only been less than a month since we ended last semester, so it can't be considered a long time." Harry said. Hermione pouted, not wanting to pay attention to Ron and Harry. She said to Lin Xiu, "My parents are over there. Do you want to meet them?" "Of course." Lin Xiu looked in the direction Hermione pointed and found that Hermione's parents were standing awkwardly at the counter that ran through the entire marble hall, waiting for Hermione to introduce them. Mr. Weasley was more excited than Lin Xiu, and he walked over directly. "Ah, you are Muggles," Mr. Weasley said happily. "We must have a drink. What is that in your hand?" "Oh, you're exchanging Muggle currency." Hermione took Lin Xiu and Harry to Mrs. Granger. "Mom, they're our friends. This is Lin Xiu, this is Harry Potter, and this is Ronwy. Nice to meet you," Mrs. Granger said. "During the holidays, Hermione kept repeating your names." Mrs. Granger looked at Lin Xiu. "Can you tell me how you and Hermione met?" Chapter 66, Another Golden Treasure Chest. Master-level forgetfulness, spell Hermione's mother. Mrs. Granger seemed to be particularly interested in Lin Xiu. When Harry and Ron went to the underground vault of Gringotts to withdraw money, Lin Xiu stayed in the lobby of Gringotts Bank, and Mrs. Granger asked about Lin Xiu from time to time, including how he and Hermione met, and whether there were any interesting things happening between them at school. Lin Xiu answered fluently, and Mrs. Granger's smile became more and more obvious. "Very good. Very suitable." Hermione said angrily, "Mom, don't ask any more." Okay, I won't ask any more," Mrs. Granger said with a smile. "There will always be a chance to ask clearly in the future." Harry and Ron just took out the money from the underground vault. The group, reunited, walked out of Gringotts, and then separated on the marble steps. Percy Weasley muttered that he wanted to buy a new quill pen. Fred and George went to find their friend Lee Jordan, and Mrs. Weasley and Ginny went to a shop selling old robes. And Mr. Weasley insisted on taking Mr. Granger and Mrs. Granger to the Leaky Cauldron for a drink. Before parting, Mrs. Weasley carefully instructed, "Meet at Flourish and Blots in an hour, and buy textbooks for you." Lin Xiu and Hermione were strolling on the cobblestone streets of Diagon Alley. Harry had the money he had just taken out of the Gringotts vault in his pocket. When he saw the ice cream shop on the side of the road, he bought 4 ice creams on the spot and shared one with everyone. The shop windows along Diagon Alley were filled with a wide variety of goods. Ron and Harry were unable to move in front of the window of the Quidditch boutique. Harry was attracted by the various exquisite Quidditch team costumes, while Ron was in love with the uniforms of the Chudley Cannons. Lin Xiu was dragged by Hermione to a nearby store to buy ink and parchment for the new semester. Finally, when they arrived at the Hopping and Playing Magic Joke Shop, met Fred, George, and Lee Jordan, who were buying a large number of Dr. Philly's automatic ignition, water-blooming magic fireworks. An hour later, they walked towards Flourish and Blots, and there were more and more people along the way. When they arrived at the door of Flourish and Blots, a large number of people were already crowded outside the store. "There are so many people," Harry said. "Will we be squeezed?" Ron was a little worried whether he could find other members of the Weasley family among so many people. Lin Xiu noticed that there was a banner on the second floor of the bookstore. Gilderoy Lockhart's autobiography, The Magic Me, is signed and sold from 12:30 to 4:30 this afternoon. Hermione said in surprise, "Harold, I remember that more than half of the books on our book list this year were written by him." Most of the crowded people were witches of Mrs. Weasley's age. A tired-looking wizard said at the door, "Ladies, be quiet. Don't crowd. Be careful of the books." Lin Xiu and his friends squeezed into the bookstore. Harry and Ron mainly wanted to find Mrs. Weasley and her friends. Lin Xiu really wanted to meet this marketing genius in the wizarding world. The queue for book signings stretched from the door to the back of the bookstore. The Weasley family and the Grangers were also in the queue. "Oh, you're here. That's great," Mrs. Weasley said. She was breathing fast and patting her hair constantly. "We'll be able to see him in a while." Ron whispered, "Mom is a fan of Lockhart." Mrs. Weasley patted Ron, and then her attention was all attracted by the voice of the shopping guide in the bookstore. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Gilderoy Lockhart." Mrs. Weasley couldn't help but applaud. "Look, he's here." There was a table at the deepest part of the bookstore, surrounded by large photos of Gilderoy Lockhart. The people in the photos all winked at the crowd, their teeth dazzlingly white. The real Lockhart came out of the small door behind the desk. He had a pair of blue eyes, wore a blue robe, and wore a playful wizard hat on his golden curly hair. A short, grumpy man held a black camera and took pictures of Lockhart from front to back and left to right. Every time the flash went off, a puff of purple smoke came out of the camera. "Get out of the way," the short man shouted, backing away. "This is for the Daily Prophet." "It's amazing," Ron said, rubbing his instep. Lockhart heard Ron's complaint, looked over, and then saw Harry. He jumped up from the stool. "Isn't this Harry Potter?" The crowd made way and whispered excitedly. Lockhart rushed forward, grabbed Harry's arm, and pulled him to the front, and the whole audience burst into applause. Harry's face was burning, and Lockhart held his hand to let the photographer take a picture. The short man pressed the shutter button frantically, and puffs of smoke drifted onto Lin Xiu. "What a beautiful smile, Harry." Lockhart also showed off his bright teeth. "We can both be on the front page." Then Lockhart announced two things in a high-profile manner. First, the famous Harry Potter came to Flourish and Blots today just to buy his autobiography, The Magic Me. "I'm willing to give him the book for free. A complete set of my books for free." Lockhart said, "By the way, The Magic Me just happened to top the Prophecy Business Daily bestseller list for the 27th week." The crowd cheered. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lockhart said loudly, waving his hand to keep everyone quiet, "I'm going to announce the second thing. This September, I will become the defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. That's right. This will be the most valuable gift young Harry has ever received. He and his classmates will receive a real, magical me." The applause and cheers of the crowd filled the room. Harry walked out of the crowd in a daze with the book Lockhart gave him. Lin Xiu, who had watched Lockhart's entire operation, was amazed. Lockhart in the original book was a clown. As a teacher of defense against the dark arts, he was only proficient in the Oblivion spell. But Lin Xiu felt that Lockhart's real strength was not the Oblivion spell, but his ability to seize opportunities to market himself at every moment. When Harry just entered the bookstore, Lockhart keenly discovered and took advantage of this opportunity. He grabbed Harry and took 10 photos in an instant. What he said afterwards was also marketing himself. He said that the famous Harry Potter came to the bookstore just to buy his book. Lockhart used Harry's fame to promote himself. Then, he also promoted his new book. When the cheers of the crowd became weaker, he threw out the breaking news that he was going to Hogwarts to teach defense against the dark arts, further manipulating the audience's emotions and raising his status in the hearts of others. All kinds of operations were smooth and natural, as if it was his instinct. Looking at Lockhart's almost perfect smile, Lin Xiu couldn't help but sigh. Marketing genius. Harry and Ron had already escaped from the crowd and were waving at Lin Xiu outside the crowd, wanting him to come out quickly. But Lin Xiu shook his head and approached Lockhart's signing table with a book in his hand. Today's opportunity is good. Lockhart was in a more excited stage when he saw Harry. Lin Xiu wanted to take the opportunity to get the emotional treasure box from Lockhart. He waited in line for almost 10 minutes before finally getting to Lockhart. "Mr. Lockhart, I'm a fan of your books," Lin Xiu said. "Can you sign for me?" Lockhart's face showed a toothy smile with 8 standard teeth. "Of course. I remember you got together with Harry Potter, right?" "Yes," Lin Xiu said. Lockhart's smile became even bigger, and he signed his name in a flash. "I have to say, as a friend of the famous Harry Potter, you have good taste," he said, "because you feel my charm." "Okay, next one." Lin Xiu felt that Lockhart was a little too realistic, and he chased people away after signing. But the next second, he saw the system prompt sound. Ding! Gilderoy Lockhart's excitement is detected, drawing a treasure chest for the host. "Congratulations to the host, you got a gold treasure chest." Lin Xiu was a little surprised. He seemed to have done nothing, just took a book to Lockhart to ask for his autograph and cultivate some favorability. How did the golden treasure chest appear directly? It was just like when he was playing a game. He just released a normal attack, and the enemy on the opposite side directly used all his ultimate skills. Lin Xiu couldn't help but sigh. Lockhart is a good person. He is really amazing when he has a treasure chest. He found a relatively small place in the other book areas of Flourish and Blott's bookstore. Most people were around Lockhart's autograph table, so it was not difficult to find a place with few people in the bookstore. Then, Kuan Xiu opened the golden treasure chest he had just received. Ding! The golden treasure chest has been opened. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Master Level Oblivion spell. Master Level Oblivion spell. Lockhart has been committed to learning and perfecting the Oblivion spell for most of his time, which has allowed him to never make mistakes when using this spell. He used the Oblivion spell to erase the memories of many male and female wizards who had made great achievements, and placed these achievements on himself. After using it, you will fully master the Oblivion spell. You can control the degree of Oblivion spell release at will and accurately erase the memory you want to erase. When you use silent casting and wandless casting techniques to cast Oblivion spell, the strength of Oblivion spell will hardly be attenuated. You will not be affected by Oblivion spells cast by others. Master Oblivion spell. Not bad. At least it is the first master-level item wife I opened from the emotional treasure chest. Lin Xiu felt a little regretful that he could not open the marketing genius trait of Lockhart. The main reason is that he obtained the Oblivion spell, and there is no room for him to cast it normally. But there will definitely be a chance when he arrives at Hogwarts. Lin Xiu felt that Lockhart liked to be flattered by others, so it should not be difficult to get a treasure chest from him. After opening the treasure chest, Lin Xiu noticed that there was a circle of people gathered at the door of the bookstore, and the atmosphere was very tense. In the middle of the crowd, Harri and Ron were confronting Malfoy. Chapter 67 Malfoy. Why do you blush when you see Potter? Malfoy, do you want to fight? Harri said to Malfoy, I'm always here. No fight. Malfoy said, I came here today mainly to apologize to you. That night in the Forbidden Forest, I told that big guy Hagrid that I would never abandon you. But when I saw the monster sucking blood from the unicorn in the Forbidden Forest, I did run away alone. I'm sorry. I thought the word apology didn't exist in your dictionary, Ron said. It's been more than half a year since we encountered the Forbidden Forest, and you just remembered to apologize? Don't pretend, Malfoy. What are you trying to do? Malfoy felt a little wronged. He had always acted arrogantly in the past. It was hard for him to be humble, but he was interpreted as having bad intentions. He said in a tough tone, "Whether you believe it or not, I just came to apologize for what happened in the Forbidden Forest before." Then, Malfoy turned around and was about to leave, but was stopped by someone. "Come on, Draco, be friendly." The man had the same blonde hair as Malfoy, and he smiled politely at Harry. "Mr. Potter, I'm Lucius Malfoy. We finally meet." Lucius shook hands with Harry while carefully observing the scar on Harry's head. "It's amazing. The scar on your forehead is legendary. Of course, we all know that it was left to you by that wizard." Harry broke away from Lucius and said coldly, "Voldemort. He's just a murderer, nothing special." "So unfriendly." Lucius Malfoy sneered. "You dare to call him by his name, either because you are brave enough or too stupid. In my opinion, you are more like the latter, ignorant, so fearless. I don't know why Draco always mentions your name at home." Malfoy blushed and turned his eyes away unnaturally. Mr. Malfoy noticed this and said coldly, "Draco, I hope you can be more capable. Don't mess up because of a girl, not to mention Dimbolt only turns into a girl occasionally." Harry and Ron widened their eyes. 603, they really didn't expect that Malfoy would be affected by Harry's appearance after he turned into a girl. "Draco, you know whether you have this idea in your mind." Lucius saw the shocked expressions of Harry and Ron and said unhappily, "Are you looking proud?" "Lucius," Mr. Weasley rushed over from a distance and said coldly, showing off in front of the children, "Is this the pure blood glory you often talk about? Bullying children, huh? What's the use of being eloquent?" "Mr. Weasley, I heard that you were busy with official duties recently and have been searching for prohibited magic items everywhere," Mr. Malfoy said. "So much copying work. I think the Ministry of Magic has paid you enough overtime pay." As he spoke, he took out the second-hand Beginner's Transfiguration Guide that Mrs. Weasley had bought for Ginny from Ginny's Cauldron. "Weasley, you work so hard, but you can't even get enough pay. What are you trying to do?" Mr. Malfoy held the book and shook his head regretfully. "Your daughter's going to Hogwarts this year, right? She can only buy tattered second-hand textbooks because you don't make enough money. It is said that you're still very keen on things related to muggles. Do you know that this is something that only the scum in Loose City would do? When it comes to money, Mr. Weasley has an unspeakable embarrassment." He blushed. "Obviously, Malfoy, we have completely different views on the scum among wizards." "Of course," said Mr. Malfoy, while stuffing Ginny's worn-out Transfiguration textbook back. "Draco, let's go back. Don't let the Weasleys lead you astray." But Mr. Malfoy had just walked a short distance with Draco Malfoy when Mr. Weasley suddenly yelled, "Malfoy, how dare you? What happened to Mr. Weasley?" Lin Xiu was surprised to see Mr. Weasley kick the cauldron in Ginny's hand away, and then suddenly rushed towards Lucius Malfoy, who was not far away. As Ginny's books flew, Mr. Weasley knocked Mr. Malfoy into a bookshelf, and dozens of thick spell books fell on them. No one knew why Mr. Weasley suddenly jumped up. But after seeing Mr. Weasley gain the upper hand in the fight with Lucius Malfoy, Fred and George shouted excitedly, "Dad beat him!" Even Harry and Ron were cheering on the side. Mrs. Weasley screamed, "Don't do this, Arthur! Don't do this!" The crowd retreated in panic, knocking down more bookshelves. "Gentlemen, please be kind, please be kind," the bookstore clerk begged. "If you want to fight, go outside." Several piles of bookshelves in the bookstore fell over. Lin Xiu took advantage of the chaos and ran to the place where Ginny's cauldron was kicked away. According to the original plot, Lucius Malfoy stuffed Voldemort's Horcrux diary into the pile of books while looking through Ginny's secondhand books. Lin Xiu felt vaguely that perhaps Mr. Weasley had noticed this to a certain extent, so he suddenly became so angry. He rushed over to confirm the location of Voldemort's Horcrux diary. Lin Xiu could give this diary to Dumbledore and at least get an emotional treasure chest from Dumbledore. But when Lin Xiu rushed to the side of the broken cauldron, he could only see Ginny's second-hand books bought from the flea market scattered all over the floor. He collected the second-hand books scattered on the floor and handed them to Ginny, in exchange for a quiet thank you. but there was no trace of Voldemort's Horcrux diary. Lin Xiu had to turn his attention to Mr. Weasley and Lucius Malfoy, who were fighting. But he saw Hagrid striding over with books all over the floor. Hagrid's loud voice overwhelmed all the other voices. "Scatter, gentlemen, spread out." He pulled Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy apart in the blink of an eye. Mr. Weasley's lip was broken, and Mr. Malfoy's eye was hit by the toadstool encyclopedia, and the area around his eye socket was swollen. Mr. Malfoy threatened in embarrassment. "Weasley, if you dare to hit me, I will report it to the Ministry of Magic." Mr. Weasley sneered. "Okay, report it to the Ministry of Magic. Let the Aurors come to investigate clearly. What did you just throw into my daughter's cauldron?" Mr. Malfoy stopped talking, waved his hand at Draco, and quickly rushed out of the store. "You shouldn't pay attention to him, Arthur." Hagrid stretched out his hand to smooth Mr. Weasley's robe, almost lifting him up. "This guy is bad. His whole family is bad, and everyone knows it. The Malfoy family's words are not worth listening to. The blood in their bodies is bad. That's it. Come on, let's go out." Mr. Weasley wanted to say something to Hagrid, but in the end he shook his head and followed Hagrid silently to the street. Mrs. Weasley was furious after seeing this scene. "Arthur, you set a good example for the children. Fighting in public. What would Gilderoy Lockhart think if he knew?" "Mr. Lockhart seems to be in a good mood." Lin Xiu said, "I just observed that he asked the reporter of the Daily Prophet whether the fight can be included in the report. He said that this news can cause a sensation." Mr. Weasley remained silent throughout the whole process. It was not until they returned to the fireplace near the leaky cauldron and used the flue powder to transport all the things they bought back to the burrow that everyone's emotions calmed down a little. Hermione's family returned home, and Lin Xiu and Harri followed Weasley to the burrow by flue powder. But the atmosphere in the burrow was not right. Finally, after dinner, Mrs. Weasley asked the question that everyone present was most concerned about. "Arthur, why did you suddenly punch Lucius Malfoy in Diagon Alley today? If Lucius really reports it to the Ministry of Magic, you will lose your job. You should be calmer." "Molly," Mr. Weasley sighed, "the thing that Professor Snape personally sent had a reaction after Lucius Malfoy flipped through Ginny's book. Things related to the dark arts." Mrs. Weasley said, "How dare he put dark magic items in Ginny's book? How could he carry dark magic items with him just to give them to others?" "I think I can explain this," Harri said. "After I was teleported to Borgin and Burke's shop by Flip Powder today, I met Malfoy and his father. They seem to have sold some things in that store. It must be because Lucius was afraid of a surprise inspection of my dark magic items." Mr. Weasley said, "I think that maybe because I recently conducted surprise inspections of many wizard families' dark magic-related items. Lucius hated me and was worried that the dark magic items collected in his home would implicate him. So he came up with this vicious method. It's a troublesome thing for me that a dark magic item appears in Ginny's possession, whether it harms anyone or not." After hearing what Mr. Weasley said, Ginny was scared. "If we had known this, we would have joined in when Dad beat up Malfoy today." Ron and the Weasley twins were indignant. "When school starts, we will beat Malfoy into a pig's head." "That damn golden retriever," Mrs. Weasley said angrily. "I'm going to settle accounts with Malfoy." She not only said this, but also planned to do so. It was already late, but Mrs. Weasley picked up the Weasley family's old broom and rushed out the door, intending to fly to the Malfoy's manor. "Molly, calm down." Mr. Weasley hugged Mrs. Weasley. "We have no evidence to prove that Lucius has a problem now. I checked several times with the detection props sent by Professor Snape today, and there is no dark magic reaction in Ginny's pile of books. I guess, when I went to beat Lucius before, the dark magic items mixed in Ginny's pile of books fell out." Lin Xiu shook his head slightly. Mr. Weasley noticed. "Lin Xiu, do you have anything to say?" Lin Xiu said, "I was standing next to Ginny at the time and saw it clearly. After Lucius Malfoy took Ginny's book in his hand, he flipped through it casually and put the book back without putting any additional dark magic items in the book. Could it be because the dark magic item that Lucius wanted to use to frame Ginny is invisible?" Harri said, "Or the dark magic item is a small thing like a ring or a necklace, so Lin Xiu didn't notice it." Mr. Weasley said, "In the next period of time, I will increase the dark magic of the Malfoy family. I will increase the intensity of the search for black magic items. Once I get the evidence, everything will be fine. Children, it's getting late. You should go to rest. Dad, Fred asked before leaving the table. Professor Snape showed up in Diagon Alley today just to give you the black magic detection item, right? Can I and George see the black magic detection item? No, Mr. Weasley said with a straight face. I'm going to search for something that is far more dangerous than ordinary black magic items. Don't worry about it. Go back to sleep. In this way, Lin Xiu and Harri spent a happy summer vacation. Every night, Mrs. Weasley would prepare a large table of sumptuous dinners, all of which were Lin Xiu and Harry's favorite foods. On the last night, Fred and George's magic fireworks show made the night even more perfect. The kitchen was full of red and blue stars, and the magic stars between the ceiling jumped for more than half an hour. Everyone was satisfied to see the last magic star go out, and everyone was very happy. Finally, everyone drank a cup of hot chocolate and went to bed. The next day was the beginning of another school year at Hogwarts. Chapter 68, Harri. I dream of driving a car. It took a long time to get going the next morning. As soon as the CK crowed, Lin Xiu and the others got up, but there still seemed to be a lot of things to do. Mrs. Weasley rushed around looking for spare socks and quilts, feeling irritable. Everyone kept bumping into each other on the stairs, half-dressed, holding a little bread left over from eating. When Mr. Weasley carried Ginny's box to the car, he was tripped by a chicken in the yard and almost fell on his neck. Lin Xiu was a little puzzled. He and Harri had been living in the burrow for more than a month, and they often encountered some accidents. But this morning, the accident rate of the Weasley family seemed to be a little abnormal. Anyway, everyone still hurriedly got on Mr. Weasley's flying car and prepared to drive to platform 9 3/4 of course. It was running normally. Mrs. Weasley didn't let Mr. Weasley turn on the flight mode. Lin Xiu noticed it the night he arrived at the burrow. Mr. Weasley's car is a Ford. Theoretically, the space in the car can only accommodate 4 people in the front and back seats, which is still a bit crowded. But the space inside the car is extended by magic, which is much larger than it looks from the outside. Don't tell Molly. Mr. Weasley opened the trunk of the flying car for luggage and showed Lin Xiu how the magic of extending space works on this car. Mr. Weasley, can you teach me how to do this? Mr. Weasley subconsciously glanced in the direction of the burrow, and Mrs. Weasley hadn't come over yet. He whispered to Lin Xiu, "This is the traceless extension charm, a very advanced magic. You will learn it later. I can't teach you now." On the one hand, the traceless extension charm itself is dangerous. If the spell is not performed properly, the unstable space may cause fatal damage to your body. Think about it. If you extend the space in a suitcase to the size of a house, you just get into the suitcase, the spell fails, and you'll be crushed directly. On the other hand, I'm worried that you will abuse it. The International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy stipulates that spells, such as the Traceless Extension Charm, which can easily attract the attention of muggles, need to be strictly controlled. It cannot be used for private purposes, but can only be used in the production of individual items approved by the Ministry of Magic, such as school suitcases and household accounts. Mr. Weasley, Lin Xiu pointed to the car and said, "Is there such a thing as a car in the list of items approved by the Ministry of Magic?" Ahem, Mr. Weasley said, "Of course it's not allowed by the General Wizarding Secrecy Act, but you know, many legal provisions have supplementary clauses. My magic car is within the scope of the supplementary clauses." Arthur Weasley, you wrote the relevant legal supplementary clauses yourself. Mrs. Weasley shouted, "You deliberately left a loophole for yourself when you wrote the law in the Ministry of Magic." Mr. Weasley laughed and fooled Mrs. Weasley, then said to Lin Xiu in a serious tone, "Anyway, I can't teach you. If you want to understand, maybe you can go to Hogwarts to ask those professors." Finally, everyone got in the car, including Lin Xiu. The car was packed with a total of 9 people, 7 large boxes, 2 owls and a mouse, and there was still plenty of space inside. Mr. Weasley sat in the driving seat, Mrs. Weasley and Ginny sat in the front seat, and Lin Xiu, Harri, Ron, and their brothers sat in the back seat. The seats were as spacious as park benches, and they all sat side by side without feeling crowded. Muggles are really smarter than we thought. Mrs. Weasley said. You can't tell from the outside that the car is so spacious, right? Weasley started the engine, and the car drove out of the yard. Lin Xiu and Harri both looked back at the burrow, wondering when they would see it again. But it was only 10 seconds. Oh no! George suddenly jumped up from his seat. I forgot my Philippa fireworks at home. It's okay, dear, we still have time. Mrs. Weasley said, Arthur, drive back a little. Mr. Weasley hummed and drove back to the burrow. For Mr. Weasley, who likes to study the life of muggles, driving the children to 9 3/4 station is a rare opportunity for him to experience the life of muggles. After George hurried back to the room to get the fireworks, he jumped into the car. Okay, Dad, I have brought everything else. Is everyone ready? Then let's go again. Mr. Weasley opened the car window and stepped on the accelerator. The oncoming wind poured into the car, and the air was very fresh. But 5 minutes later, the car drove back to the yard of the burrow again. This time, it was Fred who forgot to use his flying broom. When Fred found his broomstick in the room, he was still muttering, It's so strange. I clearly packed my broomstick. How could this happen? Mr. Weasley sighed and looked back at everyone. Didn't you forget to bring anything this time, kids? Everyone shook their heads. Okay then, let's go full speed towards platform 9 and march forth. But when the car was about to drive to the highway, Ginny panicked and said that her diary was still at home. So everyone turned back. When Ginny climbed into the car, she defended herself by saying that the diary was clearly already put away, but she didn't know why it appeared at home. This scared Harry and Ron, and they also checked their luggage. Harry found that his owl Hedwig was missing, and Ron's pet mouse Scabbers was also missing. The two of them nervously searched for most of the day before they found that the owl and the mouse were in the corner of the car. Lin Xiu felt something was wrong. It is normal to be in a hurry and have a lot of problems on the first day of school. But the frequency of mistakes made by everyone today is really exaggerated. Is it the house elf Dobby who is preventing Harry from enrolling? Lin Xiu used the eagle eye to carefully observe the surroundings, but did not find anything special. He secretly raised his vigilance. Finally, it is not long before the departure time of the Hogwarts Express at Platform 9 and March 4th. Mr. Weasley glanced at his watch. Finally, the departure time of the Hogwarts Express is getting closer and closer. Mr. Weasley glanced at his watch and then looked at Mrs. Weasley. Molly, dear, if I can get the car to fly to Platform 9 3/4, we'll definitely make it in time. No, Arthur. No one will see. There's a little button here. It's an invisible booster I installed. It will send us up into the sky. Then we'll fly above the clouds, and we'll be there in 10 minutes, and no one will know. You want to violate the statute of wizarding secrecy in broad daylight. Finally, Lin Xiu and Harry arrived at the station at 10:45. Mr. Weasley rushed across the road to find the luggage cart, and everyone rushed into the station and crossed the 9 3/4 platform one after another. Percy Weasley was the first, followed by Mr. Weasley, Fred, and George. Then, Mrs. Weasley disappeared into the platform with Ginny, leaving only Lin Xiu, Harry, and Ron. Ron whispered, Let's rush over together. There's not much time left. Out of caution, Lin Xiu just slowly pushed the cart and followed behind, without charging. No need to rush. Lin Xiu said, Hogwarts has been in operation for so many years, and there must have been various situations on the first day of school. Being late is not a big deal. According to the original plot, the house elf Dobby has now closed platform 9 3/4, and rushing to the platform now is just a matter of hitting the wall. But Harry and Ron still crouched confidently, pushed the car firmly towards the brick wall of the platform, and then gradually quickened their pace, and finally ran. Bang! They hit the wall and bounced back. Ron's box hit the ground heavily, Harry was knocked down, and Hedwig's cage bounced onto the shiny floor and rolled to the side. Hedwig screamed angrily. Lin Xiu now has intermediate magical animal affinity and multilingual proficiency. With the combination of the two, he can probably understand that Hedwig is cursing. Many people gathered around them to watch, and a guard shouted, What the hell are you doing? The car is gone. Harry gasped, holding his ribs and climbing up. Lin Xiu picked up Hedwig's cage next to his feet. Hedwig was still yelling, and a group of people pointed at Harry and Ron for abusing animals. We're going to miss the train. They subconsciously looked at Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu, why can't we get through? Lin Xiu shook his head. I don't know. But I can be sure of one thing. We're in trouble now. The clock at the train station began to chime on the hour, a little drunk. Harri was still trying to push the wall. He seemed to be trying to squeeze into platform 9 3/4 directly by brute force, but failed. It's over, Ron said blankly. The train has left. We're going to be late. Big trouble. Do you have muggle money on you? Harri laughed dryly. The Dursleys haven't given me pocket money for 6 years. I don't have any money. Being late and having no money are not a big deal. Lin Xiu said, Harri, Ron, don't you find it strange? What's so strange? Since this morning, everyone at the Burrow has been in trouble, delaying many events. Lin Xiu said, afterwards, we came to platform 9 3/4 and arrived on time. But the platform was closed. This is unreasonable. Wizards don't have the same sense of time as Muggles do. The closure of the platform is very abnormal. The most abnormal thing is that there are no Ministry of Magic staff near platform 9 3/4 to deal with emergencies on the scene. I remember when we just entered school last year, I saw a lot of Ministry of Magic wizards in plain clothes at platform 9 3/4. Lin Xiu, do you mean we're being framed? This possibility cannot be ruled out. Lin Xiu said, there are many people here. Let's go and wait by the car. Even if Mr. Weasley forgets us, he will not forget the flying car he dreamed of. Good idea, Lin Xiu. Ron's eyes lit up. Car. Harri looked at Ron. What's wrong? We can fly to Hogwarts in a flying car. Harri hesitated. Will this work? Ron looked at Lin Xiu, who was frowning, and said quickly, we are trapped, right? We have to rush back to school, right? In a real emergency, young wizards can also use magic. Article 19 or Article 10 of the Wizard Restriction Regulations stipulates that. Harri suddenly turned from panic to excitement. Can you drive? No problem. Ron said, I often watch George and Fred drive, and I have learned a lot. Let's hurry up. Maybe if we hurry up, we can catch up with the Hogwarts Express. Harri and Ron discussed one after another and decided the whole thing in a few words. Driving a flying car to Hogwarts in broad daylight is to throw the wizard confidentiality regulations directly behind your head. Ron is worthy of being Mr. Weasley's son. Without laws and regulations, he can create laws and regulations to support his behavior. No. Lin Xiu stopped the two people who were eager to drive the car. You can't drive to Hogwarts. But we have to get to Hogwarts. This is a real emergency. Lin Xiu shook his head. It's just late. This is not an emergency. We just need to write a letter to Professor McGonagall to explain it. Harri and Ron were speechless. After Lin Xiu's suggestion, it seemed that sending an owl to Professor McGonagall to explain what happened to them was a better way. But Harri and Ron both had some regrets on their faces when they failed to drive. To be honest, big guys, who doesn't want to drive? Lin Xiu wrote a simple letter to Professor McGonagall to explain the current situation. Harri, borrow Hedwig to help deliver a letter. Harri nodded. Lin Xiu patted Hedwig's head gently. Thank you for your trouble. Hedwig cooed a few times happily and flew into the sky with Lin Xiu's letter. Compared to a flying car, an owl delivering a letter is not so conspicuous. However, after just a moment, Hedwig, the owl that flew into the sky with the letter, flew back dizzy and fell on Harri. Hedwig, what's wrong with you? Lin Xiu used the intermediate magical animal affinity to roughly understand the meaning from Hedwig's cry. Hedwig can't find Professor McGonagall's location. As a magical creature in the wizarding world, owls are very important to the wizarding world. Messengers have a natural affinity for magic, so they can easily find the location of the recipient and deliver the letter to any wizard or witch in time. There is only one situation in which the owl cannot deliver the letter. That is, the recipient is blocked. Professor McGonagall is a teacher at Hogwarts, and today is the beginning of the new semester at Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall will not block herself. Therefore, Hedwig could not sense Professor McGonagall's location. There can only be one situation. Harri, Ron, the area we are in is blocked by someone. Chapter 69, First Meeting with Luna in the following time. Harri and Ron wrote more than a dozen letters in different people's names, hoping that the owl Hedwig would send them out. But without exception, Hedwig could not sense the location of the recipient at all and flew back to Harry dizzy every time. We must have been targeted by someone. Ron said, Lin Xiu, Harry, if we continue to stay here, there may be some danger. Why don't we leave here first? Lin Xiu shook his head. Leaving here is the most dangerous. We just have to wait. In fact, it didn't wait too long. About 10 minutes later, Xiu and the others saw Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley, who came anxiously. Thank God, Mrs. Weasley breathed a sigh of relief. When I sent Ginny to the train, I didn't see the three of you follow in. I thought you were missing. Mr. Weasley asked, Lin Xiu, Harry, why didn't you follow to the platform? Lin Xiu briefly explained to Mr. Weasley about the closure of Platform 9 and March 4th. Harry and Ron showed the marks left after they hit the wall. There were many scratches on their bodies, and the luggage racks were crooked because of hitting the wall. Mr. Weasley's face became more and more serious. 160. The platform was closed, and the Ministry of Magic staff guarding the entrance of the platform never showed up. You wanted to send a letter with an owl, but failed. Mr. Weasley said, This shows that someone wants to target you. He frowned and thought for a while, then said, I will investigate what happened here. Now, you should get on the Hogwarts Express first. But the train has already left. Harry said, Mr. Weasley, besides the train, what other ways can we get to Hogwarts? Who said it has left? Mr. Weasley said, Before the train left, Professor Snape checked the list of people and found that Harry was missing. So the Hogwarts Express was postponed until now. We also took this time to find you finally. Lin Xiu and the others got on the Hogwarts Express without any danger. Sitting in the carriage, Harry and Ron both breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Xiu, thank you. If it weren't for you, we would have been expelled by now. When Mr. and Mrs. Weasley sent them here just now, they made it clear what the consequences would be if Harry and Ron had not been stopped by Lin Xiu just now and really drove the flying car to chase the Hogwarts Express and were seen by the Muggles near the train station. This would have seriously violated the statute of secrecy. They might have been expelled from Hogwarts for this. In the carriage, the three of them were talking about the upcoming second year when the carriage door was suddenly opened. Hermione appeared at the door. Lin Xiu, I didn't see you on the train before and thought you were lost. Later, others said that because the three of you didn't get on the train in time, Professor Snape and the train driver discussed delaying the departure. After the train started, I guessed that you had already got on the train, so I came to find you. Hermione was obviously relieved. Fortunately, you don't seem to have any accidents. Lin Xiu told Hermione about the strange situation they had encountered before. The entrance to Platform 9 3/4 is blocked. Owls are also targeted, and there's no way to send letters out. Hermione frowned and said, It sounds like you're being targeted. I have to look in the book to see if there have been similar situations before. Hermione hurried out of the carriage, but before Lin Xiu and the others could be quiet for a moment, they heard a large number of footsteps approaching their carriage quickly. The Weasley twins appeared at the door of the carriage with a group of Gryffindor wizards. Before Lin Xiu and the others could say anything, thunderous applause broke out in the crowd. Great! Lee Jordan, who had previously commented on Quidditch games, shouted, Lin Xiu, you delayed the departure of the Hogwarts Express for nearly half an hour. People will talk about it for years. A senior student who had never spoken to them said, It's amazing. The Weasley twins asked in unison, When you decided to delay boarding, why didn't you call us back? What? The Gryffindor students around were very enthusiastic, as if Lin Xiu and his team had made some remarkable heroic achievements. As time passed, the Hogwarts students gradually dispersed. The Hogwarts Express sped along the railway. Drinking the iced pumpkin juice sold by the Fat Witch's cart, Lin Xiu watched the foggy London city quickly being left behind, the green and flat fields undulating, and then a vast purple swamp, villages and churches. Then, winding around a snow-capped mountain, the sky darkened. Before it became completely dark, Lin Xiu's train arrived at the station. When getting off the train, it was as lively as ever. A familiar voice shouted, First-year students come here. Lin Xiu turned around and saw the burly Hagrid. He was waving at the somewhat confused new students and was going to take them to experience the traditional trip across the lake. Lin Xiu noticed that Ginny glanced in his direction and then followed the crowd to the lake. Hagrid was going to take the little wizards in another direction. He waved to Lin Xiu and the others. Lin Xiu, how are you doing recently? See you at school. Lin Xiu followed the other students of the school and walked on a rough and muddy road. There were at least 100 carriages waiting for the remaining students on that road. He saw some creatures standing in front of those carriages that looked like horses, but were actually completely different. They looked like reptiles with no flesh on their bodies. The black fur was tightly attached to the skeleton, and every bone was clearly visible. There were no pupils in their eyes, which were white. Large and black wings grew from the bulge of the shoulder blades, looking like a huge bat. With the help of intermediate magical animal affinity and some books on magical animals that he had read, Lin Xiu had the answer in his mind the first time he saw these strange creatures. These strange creatures standing quietly in front of the carriage are thestrals. They look ferocious, but their personalities are surprisingly docile. The thestrals in front of the carriage where Lin Xiu was sitting noticed that Lin Xiu was looking at it, turned their heads, and gently rubbed Lin Xiu's hand, like a cat acting coquettishly. Harri and Ron were in the same carriage as Lin Xiu, and the thestrals pulled the carriage forward, not very fast. After the carriage started moving, Harri said in surprise, "It's so strange. The carriage is moving by itself. Is it made to move by magic?" "It's not magic. It's the thestrals pulling the carriage." "Harri, you can simply think of the thestrals as horses that ordinary people can't see," Lin Xiu said, "but Harri, can't you see it? The thestrals are magical animals that can only be seen by people who have witnessed death with their own eyes." Lin Xiu was able to see and touch the thestrals with the help of death perception from Voldemort's emotional treasure box and intermediate magical creature affinity from Hagrid's emotional treasure box. But Harry's parents died in front of Harri, so logically, Harri should be able to see the thestrals, right? Is it because Harri was too young at that time and didn't even understand the concept of death? So even if his mother died in front of him, he didn't count as witnessing death. Lin Xiu didn't quite understand. Ron couldn't see the thestrals in front of the carriage either. Harri said, "Is there anything special about the thestrals' invisibility?" Just as Lin Xiu was about to speak, he noticed that the carriage pulled by the thestrals had stopped in front of a girl with waist-length golden hair. Only those who have witnessed death can see the thestrals, the blonde girl said in a singing voice, and she looked at Lin Xiu. "Have you also seen death?" The blonde girl wore a necklace made of butterbeer corks, and her wand was inserted behind her hair on her left ear, which looked very unusual. At this time, the sound of shrubs being trampled came from the forest not far away. The burly Hagrid came out, shouting as he walked, "Lovegood! Freshman Luna Lovegood! Where are you?" "I'm here." Luna waved to Hagrid from a distance, and then looked at Lin Xiu. "I'm leaving soon. I'm Luna Lovegood. What's your name?" "Lin Xiu. Nice to meet you, Kuan Xiu." Luna smiled at Lin Xiu, with a dazed look on her face, and slowly walked toward Hagrid. Ron whispered, "This girl's dress is different from most." Lin Xiu nodded in agreement. After all, this is Luna. In the original book, Lin Xiu liked Luna's personality very much. He thought that he would be like Harri in the original book, and would not have contact with Luna until after the Goblet of Fire. But thinking about it carefully, he was right. Luna and Ginny are in the same grade. Ginny entered Hogwarts this year, and so did Luna. Lin Xiu and the others continued to move forward in a carriage pulled by the thestrals. In front of them was a pair of majestic cast iron gates, with many stone pillars on both sides, and winged wild boars standing on top of the stone pillars. Further back, there was a huge oak door. Wooden door. Go up the stairs behind the oak door, turn right, and you will see the road leading to the hall. Not long after Lin Xiu and his friends entered the hall, the new students of this year came in one after another, and the Sorting Hat assigned the new students to various colleges. Ron's sister Ginny went to Gryffindor, while Luna, who impressed Lin Xiu, was assigned to Ravenclaw. After going through the familiar process last year, each student returned to their respective dormitories to rest and slept until dawn. In the morning, after the Gryffindors sat at the table and finished breakfast, Professor McGonagall began to distribute the New Year's schedule along the Gryffindor table. The first class was Professor Sprout's herbology class. According to the course schedule, in this class, Professor Sprout wanted the teachers to try to repot the mandrake. Chapter 70 Professor Sprout's Recognition, Mastery of Intermediate Herbology. The herbology class was almost over, and Lin Xiu and Hermione left the castle together, walked through the vegetable garden, and headed towards the greenhouse. Before reaching the greenhouse door, Lin Xiu saw that everyone was waiting for Professor Sprout. But after a while of class time, Professor Sprout strode across the lawn. Beside her, Gilderoy Lockhart also followed. Professor Sprout had a patched hat on her flowing hair, and her clothes were covered with a lot of dirt. There were many bandages on her hands. Gilderoy Lockhart, on the other hand, was spotless from head to toe, wearing a flowing turquoise robe and a turquoise hat with a gold rim on his shining golden hair. "Oh, hello," Lockhart shouted with a smile on his face. "Just now when I passed by the Whomping Willow, the Whomping Willow seemed to have some problems, and I cured it. By the way, I also showed Professor Sprout how to heal the Whomping Willow. But I don't want you to think that I am better than Professor Sprout in herbology. I just happened to see a few strange plants during my travels." Sprout frowned at Lockhart and said with a sullen look, "Today we are in the third greenhouse." "The third greenhouse," Hermione whispered to Lin Xiu. "We only went to the first greenhouse in herbology last semester, and the book said that the plants in the third greenhouse of Hogwarts are more dangerous." Fred and George said so too. Ron talked to Harri, but they also said that the plants in the third greenhouse are more interesting. Harri was a little surprised. "Where are the dangers of plants?" "As long as we don't eat strange plants randomly, isn't it okay?" "Some plants can move, Harri," Lin Xiu said. "Some can even bite people." "Bite people?" But before Lin Xiu could answer Harri, Sprout had already taken the key from his belt and opened the door of the third greenhouse. Lin Xiu smelled the smell of damp soil and fertilizer, mixed with a strong floral scent. Looking around, there were umbrella-sized flowers hanging from the ceiling. Harri was about to follow Lin Xiu and Hermione into the greenhouse when Lockhart stood up. "Harri, I've been wanting to talk to you, Professor Sprout. He's 2 minutes late. You don't mind, do you?" Lin Xiu saw that Professor Sprout's face was not very good, and he obviously minded. But Lockhart said, "That's great." He dragged Harri out of the greenhouse and closed the door. Perhaps to wait for Harri to come in, Professor Sprout did not start the lecture immediately, but reminded the little wizards, "There is a huge willow tree at the end of the lawn. That is the Whomping Willow. The Whomping Willow is very manic. No matter who or what approaches, it will be whipped by its branches. For your safety, please do not take the initiative to pass by the Whomping Willow's attack range like a certain professor did this morning. The Whomping Willow is naturally very aggressive. It attacks people not because it has problems." Professor Sprout didn't specify which professor it was, but the young wizards present immediately guessed that it was Lockhart who did it. "In short, for your own sake, don't take the initiative to provoke the Whomping Willow like a certain professor did." Harri pushed open the door of the greenhouse, and Professor Sprout stopped talking about the Whomping Willow. "Since Harri is back, let's officially start today's herbology class. I'll go get the things I need for today's class and be back soon." Professor Sprout walked into the third warehouse. "Harri, what did Professor Lockhart call you out for?" Ron came to Harri. "I'm a little confused," Harri said. "Lockhart said outside that the three of us, Lin Xiu and you, delayed the departure of the Hogwarts Express for a full half an hour at the beginning of the school year, and we stole the limelight." "Did he really say that? What was Lockhart's tone when he said that?" "Appreciation or admiration," Ron said. "Lin Xiu, do you think Lockhart will write about this in his future new book? Then we will be famous." Harri shook his head. "I think when he mentioned this, he sounded a bit jealous. Jealous of us being famous in front of the whole school." Lockhart said that the fact that Lin Xiu and we delayed the Hogwarts Express by half an hour was a sensation, but not glorious enough. It was not as good as the fact that he won the Witch Weekly's Most Fascinating Smile Award for 5 consecutive times. "That's strange," Hermione said. "Isn't Professor Lockhart famous for writing books? Why is he so jealous of you?" Lin Xiu said, "I guess Lockhart wants to gain more fame. Maybe that's why he only found Harri. not me and Ron. Harry's fame is actually much greater than Lockhart's. Harry made Voldemort disappear. Harry sighed. I would rather not have such a reputation. Sprout took out a bunch of things from the warehouse, a pile of deep-bottom flower pots, and 20 or so pairs of earmuffs of different colors. When Harry sat next to Ron, Professor Sprout said, "We are going to change the pot of the mandrake today. Now who can tell me what the characteristics of the mandrake are?" Hermione raised her hand first as expected, but Lin Xiu had already given the answer first. Mandra, also known as mandrake root, is a powerful restorative agent. Lin Xiu said it can be used to restore people who have been petrified or cursed to their original state. Very good. 10 point for Gryffindor. Professor Sprout said, Mandra is an important component of most antidotes, but it is also very dangerous. Can anyone tell me why? Hermione raised her hand again, but Lin Xiu answered before her. Hearing the cry of mandrake can kill people. The annoyance that Lockhart brought to Professor Sprout had been completely dispelled. At this time, she looked at Lin Xiu with approval. Absolutely correct. 10 point for Gryffindor. The little wizards in Gryffindor looked at Lin Xiu in surprise. Except for Harri, a girl in the potions class, few people could add more than 20 points to Gryffindor in other courses, just for one class. Harri and Ron also smiled at Lin Xiu. Gryffindor added points. They were proud of it. Hermione tugged at the corner of Lin Xiu's clothes under the table. Twice, I raised my hand first. Lin Xiu smiled at Hermione. Sometimes I also want to answer some questions. Okay, but next time we answer questions, we have to compete fairly. Hermione quickly shifted her attention to Professor Sprout. Lin Xiu began to pay attention to his system prompts. He was so active in answering questions just to get the emotional treasure chest from Professor Sprout. Professor Sprout waved his wand, and a row of deep-bottomed flower pots floated onto the table. Look, the mandrakes in the pots are still very young. Everyone came forward, and there were a large number of young mandrakes with green and purple in the pots. It looks like an ordinary potted plant, Harry said. There's nothing special about these mandrakes. Lin Xiu, what do you mean by crying just now? Can grass cry? And Professor Sprout has officially started today's herbology class. Each of you take a pair of earmuffs, and when I tell you to put them on, make sure to cover your ears tightly. When it's safe to take off the earmuffs, I'll give you 2 thumbs up. Okay, put on the earmuffs. Everyone did as they were told. Professor Sprout himself put on a pair of pink fluffy earmuffs, rolled up his sleeves, firmly grasped a clump of grass leaves, and pulled it up with all his strength. Lin Xiu saw Harri staring at the thing in Professor Sprout's hand with wide eyes. What was pulled out of the soil was not a grass root like a beard, but a very ugly light green baby. The leaves of the mandrake grew on the head of the green baby, and from the movement of the green baby's mouth, it was obviously shouting at the top of its voice. Professor Sprout took out a large flower pot from under the table, stuffed the mandrake doll into it, and buried it with dark compost, leaving only the clump of leaves exposed. She patted the mud on her hands, gave Lin Xiu and the others 2 thumbs up, and then took off her earmuffs. Our mandrakes are still seedlings, and hearing their cries will not be fatal, she said calmly, but they will make you unconscious for a few hours, and I don't think any of you want to miss the first day of school. So everyone must wear earmuffs when working. All right, kids, for people per plate, there are a lot of flower pots here. The compost is in the bag. Over there, watch out for the poisonous tentacles. It's teething. Professor Sprout said as she slapped a thorny crimson plant, causing it to retract its tentacles that were quietly reaching for her shoulder. The little wizards began to concentrate on dealing with the mandrake. Just now, Professor Sprout seemed very relaxed when he changed the pot for the mandrake. But Harri and the others found that it was not the case at all after they really looked at it. The mandrakes didn't want to be pulled out of the soil, but they didn't seem to want to go back either. They twisted their bodies, kicked their feet, waved their fists, and gritted their teeth. Except for Lin Xiu, who could easily control, except for the mandrake. The other students were sweating profusely. It took Harri and Ron a full 10 minutes to stuff a particularly fat mandrake into the flower pot. After Professor Sprout signaled the end of get out of class, the students put down the flower pots and took off their earmuffs. Then, they heard Professor Sprout say to Lin Xiu with satisfaction, "You were very neat when you repotted the mandrake." You seem to be very talented in herbology. Gryffindor gets another 10 points. Okay, classmates, let's end the class. Lin Xiu earned another 10 points for Gryffindor, and everyone looked at him sideways, but they no longer had the energy to say anything. Repotting the mandrake had exhausted their energy. Now almost everyone had backaches and was covered with Ni Wong. On the way back to the castle after class, Harri and Ron walked beside Lin Xiu and asked, Lin Xiu, how did you do it? Why is it so easy for you to repot the mandrake? Is there any trick? There is a trick, Lin Xiu said. Just like pulling weeds, you have to apply force close to the root of the mandrake, otherwise you can't hold the leaves firmly. So that's how it is. Harri and Ron went back to the dormitory to take a shower together. And Lin Xiu also received a system prompt. Ding! Detected Pomona Sprout's emotional fluctuations, drawing treasure chest for the host. Congratulations to the host. You have obtained a silver treasure chest. Ding! The silver treasure chest has been opened. Congratulations to the host for obtaining primary herbology mastery. Ding! Detected that the host already has primary herbology mastery. Primary herbology mastery is superimposed and advanced. Congratulations to the host for obtaining intermediate herbology mastery. Intermediate herbology mastery. After using it, you will have more knowledge of herbology, and you will not be actively attacked by offensive plants such as the whomping willow. You will be able to attack various plants. Lin Xiu's eyes lit up. These properties improved by intermediate herbalism are very useful. He chose to use them. Feeling the extra knowledge in his mind, Lin Xiu thought silently. The herbs I picked by myself can increase the effect of the potion. It's time to find some time to try to collect materials and make potions by myself, right? The first class after lunch was Lockhart's defense against the dark arts course. After arriving at the classroom and the whole class was seated, Lin Xiu saw Lockhart walk in from the door with a standard 8-2 smile on his face. Good afternoon, everyone. Chapter 71. Defense against the dark arts class. A big show. Lockhart cleared his throat loudly. Now, let me introduce you to your new professor of defense against the dark arts. That's me, Gilderoy Lockhart, winner of the Order of Merlin, 3rd class, the highest honorary member of the Defense Against the Dark Arts League, and 5-time winner of the Most Charming Smile Award from Wizard Weekly. Lockhart smiled, but I rarely mention such things. I don't drive away those witches with a smile. He was waiting for everyone to laugh. Harri and Ron looked at each other and looked at each other. Only a few people smiled faintly. I see that you have all bought my complete set of books. Very good. I think we should do a little test today. Don't be afraid, just to see how well you read tell. After handing out the papers, he returned to the podium. I'll give you 30 minutes, now start. Lin Xiu glanced at the papers and was a little stunned. What are these questions? Question 1. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's favorite color? Question 2. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's secret? The last question on the last page is, when is Gilderoy Lockhart's birthday? What is his ideal birthday gift? These various questions involving Lockhart himself occupied 3 full pages. Lin Xiu didn't understand and was shocked. Half an hour later, Lockhart collected the papers and looked through them in front of the whole class. TSK Tisk, almost no one remembers that my favorite color is lilac. I mentioned it in a year with the Tibetan snowman. Some students need to read Weekends with Debt carefully again. I clearly stated in Chapter 12 of the book that my ideal birthday gift is for all magical and non-magical people to live in harmony. Lockhart winked at Lin Xiu and the others. But I won't refuse a big bottle of Ogden's aged hot whiskey. Almost no one responded positively, but several little wizards were trying to hold back their laughter. Lin Xiu was watching Lockhart's performance and was suddenly called. Fortunately, there are Mr. Lin Xiu and Miss Hermione Granger. They know that my secret ambition is to eliminate evil in the world and sell my own series of spelling water. Good job. You both got 10 points. Lockhart turned over Lin Xiu and Hermione's papers. Where are Mr. Lin Xiu and Miss Hermione Granger? Lin Xiu and Hermione raised their hands. Excellent, Lockhart said with a smile. Very good. Because of your good performance, give Gryffindor 10 points. Lin Xiu sighed. Lockhart really has a weird temperament. Lin Xiu obviously gave Gryffindor extra points, but after Lockhart's performance-style propaganda, he felt that this extra point was more uncomfortable than the deduction. I kind of regret that I got all the answers right. Hermione whispered to Lin Xiu. This is the first time I feel that reading books shouldn't have such a good memory. Lin Xiu patted Hermione's shoulder to comfort her. On the podium, Lockhart bent down and took out a large cage covered with a cloth and put on the table. Now be careful. My mission is to teach you to resist the most evil things known to the magical world. You will face the most terrifying things in this classroom. But remember, as long as I am here, you will not be hurt. It must be said that Lockhart has a talent for acting. As he spoke, he knocked on the large cage with his wand, and suddenly there was a sound of something struggling inside. Several little wizards were scared. Harri and Ron couldn't help but cover themselves with a pile of books. When Lockhart put a hand on the drape, Seamus behind Lin Xiu stopped laughing, and Neville in the first row said something. I must ask you not to scream. Lockhart lowered his voice. It will anger the thing in the cage. Almost the whole class held their breath, and Lockhart suddenly lifted the drape as if he was unveiling the stage. Cornish pixies? Ron and Seamus couldn't help laughing. The scariest thing? What's wrong? Lockhart said with a smile. Well, they're not very dangerous. That Seamus laughed so hard that he couldn't breathe. Don't be so sure. Lockhart shook his head in annoyance. They're cunning little destroyers like the devil. Lin Xiu looked at the cage and found some small, iron-blue creatures inside. They were estimated to be 15 centimeters long and had small pointed faces. The voices of these Cornish pixies were very sharp and piercing, just like a lot of budgies quarreling. As soon as Lockhart took off the cover, these pixies began to chirp, jump up and down, and make all kinds of weird faces at the people around them. Okay, Lockhart said loudly. Since you think they're not dangerous, let me see how you deal with them. Lockhart opened the cage door. The scene was in chaos. The pixies flew around like rockets, and the little wizards screamed and ran away. Two elves grabbed Neville's ears and lifted him up, and several others rushed out of the window, scattering broken glass all over the back of the classroom. The rest wreaked havoc in the classroom. They grabbed ink bottles and splashed them all over the class, tore books and papers into pieces, tore down the words hanging on the wall, and turned the trash can upside down. A few minutes later, almost the whole class hid under the table. The elves threw the school bags and textbooks on the table out of the broken window, and Neville swung back and forth on the chandelier, begging someone to save him. At this time, Lockhart was still urging and shouting, come on, everyone. Hurry up and dry them together. They are just some elves' tea." But no one paid any attention to Lockhart. They were all hiding. Neville, who was hanging on the chandelier, shouted, "Professor Lockhart, don't just stand there and talk. Save me first." "Okay, I have to get serious." Lockhart rolled up his sleeves, waved his wand, and shouted, "Pesky pixie pest to me." The classroom was quiet for a second, but nothing happened. Neville was still hanging on the chandelier. A little elf grabbed Roth's wand and took down the huge dragon-shaped skeleton hanging on the ceiling of the classroom, almost hitting Lockhart. Lockhart took a breath and ran to the door in embarrassment. I'll give you a chance. Catch the remaining elves in the cage." After saying that, he walked out of the classroom without looking back and closed the door as soon as he went out. "Help! Who will save me?" Neville was still hanging on the chandelier for help. "What should we do now?" Harri and Ron subconsciously looked at Lin Xiu. "There is a spell that could solve this problem," Lin Xiu said as he pulled out his wand and waved it gently at the flying elves in the sky. "Immobilis, immobilize all." The white light of the spell flashed, and the flying elves in the classroom all seemed to be frozen in midair. "Cool," Harri and Ron said in surprise. "Beautiful spell." Other students who were hiding under the desks also crawled out, and even Neville hanging on the chandelier couldn't help but applaud. "Lin Xiu, thanks to you. In my opinion, you are more powerful than Lockhart. By the way, can you put me down first?" Chapter 72, Did You Beat Professor Lockhart to Death? Since Lockhart created the elf disaster, many people are not so enthusiastic about his defense against the dark arts class. In contrast, Lin Xiu's reputation has become better and better. and has become a hot topic recently. The details of Lin Xiu's subduing the elves in the defense against the dark arts class have gradually spread. Harri and Ron can hear many people talking about Lin Xiu from time to time when they walk on the road. That's great. After returning to the Gryffindor common room, Ron said, with some envy, Lin Xiu, this time you are really famous. Lin Xiu said, this kind of fame is not good. Lin Xiu is right. Harri agreed and said, being famous is not a good thing. You are all famous people, so you can say that. Ron sighed. I also want to try the taste of being famous. Looking at Ron's envious expression, Lin Xiu shook his head slightly. The background prompt of his emotional treasure box system was quiet. No one had emotional fluctuations enough to drop the emotional treasure box because of this incident. For Lin Xiu, this time of fame did not bring any benefits, so it was not worth caring about. In contrast, Lin Xiu was more concerned about what would happen next. According to the original plot, Voldemort had been wandering in this world as a ghost.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.